Sarah.
Hey,
Daisy.
that's it again.
It's a bit wet for us today in Cirencester. Can't put any chalk down right now. And of course town is not as busy as it would be if it was sunny. It would be busier if it was sunny.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The weather said it was going to report said it was going to clear, but so far I don't even have a raincoat. Fishing. What it looks like from the other side. You can read through in the light. The phone says I need to rotate. That's what Google. Amazing. Earth is not a spinning ball. They've lied to us about that as well. Earth is not a globe in space. They've lied to us about space travel. Did you know they never went to the moon? Or
Nah, that's bollocks,
do
isn't
you
it?
think they went?
Yeah, of course they did. Do you think how much money it would have cost them to pretend?
Much less than going. I could do it in a studio. You know, they did it with.
Yeah, you can today,
Yeah.
60 years later. Any fool can say that.
Can you see?
I suppose COVID was all make-believe.
Can you see the technology the military have today is ahead of what we have in the public? You recognise that?
Yeah, probably.
And it's true also that in the 1940s they were using blue screen or green screen technology. Long
Really?
before, yeah, in the 1940s. That's a matter of fact. You can
Do you know what? I
Google that.
live next door to a conspiracy theorist, and he's a nutter.
Well,
honestly.
the thing is, that I used to believe
Does
in
that
all of
building
these
exist
things.
then? Oh, perhaps that's by
building
pretend. I
is-
mean, it's
The buildings are real. Everything you can touch is real.
okay.
But the idea
So what about
of
these
who-
rockets that they've sent up now that you see on your phone or tablet or whatever, and they actually bring the used part back and it lands back on the stand that
Yeah.
it took off from?
You're old enough to remember
Is
the
that-
Harrier. You remember the Harrier jump jet?
Yeah.
Do you remember how long it took the British to perfect that?
Oh, years and years.
Years and years. You remember that well. Well, I remember that too. And then all of a sudden, Elon Musk can come out of nowhere and do something with a pencil. You know, put a single retro rocket on a pencil, basically, and get that to land perfectly every time. We couldn't do that with the Harrier for years with 4 down jets on that plane. So I know that for sure. Just like with the moon lander, you know, I believed in the moon landings, but the moon lander was never proven on Earth.
How are you going
They-
to prove it? Unless
Well,
you
should be able
go
to fly
there,
it, right?
unless
Well,
you
like
go
the
there.
Harrier jump jet, you should be able to take off and land and in a controlled fashion, and then it's ready for service. They never did that. 45 seconds is the longest they ever kept that in the air, and 15 seconds is the longest they got a guy into a vacuum chamber in a spacesuit before he himself says, "I nearly died."
45 seconds was the longest they kept what in the air?
They had the frame, the lunar lander frame. All you can find evidence of is that they took a frame, put 4 jets on it, and they got Neil Armstrong to fly in it for 45 seconds before he ejects. And that's the longest they ever made just the chassis, let alone the entire thing with all the equipment loaded on. We were told, and I believed it, that when they got into 1/6 gravity on the moon, everything's just going to work fine. Well, you would test the spacesuit to make sure it was going to work fine, and you would test your landing systems to make sure that they were going to work fine to the nth degree. That's what we do in engineering. You don't put crew into a thing that hasn't been tested. And we cannot find evidence that it was ever tested. Same with the International Space Station. We never see it being built here on Earth. Right, let's put it together, the components, well, then we'll disassemble it, and then we'll put it back together up in space. We never see that happen.
Okay.
We just see those bits arrive in space, get put in, and that could be done like in a studio. That could be.
So the space station doesn't exist. It's all make-believe. It's a conspiracy, just like landing on the moon.
Yeah.
You can see the space station every single night in the sky.
How big is the space station?
Huge.
How
And
big?
I don't know.
You can't just say huge, sir.
It's huge.
I can tell you
because
how
can
big
see
it
it
is.
with a naked eye.
Well,
and
yeah,
people,
exactly.
where I live, have got telescopes, and they look at it every single night, and it's all lit up.
Yeah.
But it's there, isn't it? It's in the sky.
Yeah. No, I'm with you on that. Now, what if I was to be trying to pull the wool over your eyes? Because if the space station is the size of a football field, like they say, that's how big it is, the size of a football field. I know that when I fly over Man United in a plane at 6 miles, I can't see the stadium. I can't see the stadium at 6 miles. At 250 miles, do you really think that we can resolve something the size of a football field?
So
and
what
then
have
it's
you-
going to have such big
what
lights
have
on
you
it.
flown?
They'd be running. What engines are they running?
What have you flown
Let me
over
finish.
Man United
I've flown over
at
the,
6 miles?
I've flown over the Mediterranean Sea.
Well, right, that's
And
what
I've
Man
seen
United.
what is-
no,
what is
you've just
just level
claimed.
water.
You've just claimed
Yeah.
when you fly over Man United, you
Yeah.
can't see it.
Well, I've flown over London.
We're
Can't-
going to need them.
Can't see Wembley from the plane. And if you can just make it out.
What,
and
from
if,
36,000 feet?
Yeah.
Yeah, you can see it clearly.
Yeah, and if you can see that at 36,000 feet or 6 miles, double that, and then it barely resolve it, right?
But
Double
that's a,
and then
that's
double
a
that again,
stadium.
and double
They're
which is
looking-
way bigger.
They're looking at the world.
No, I'm talking about us observing the International Space Station. You know, it's so small at 250 miles that we should not be able to see it with the naked eye. And the lights that were on it are so bright, they're brighter than our lighthouses, which can only be seen at 50 miles. So they're carrying lights brighter than a lighthouse, is what you believe, that we can see from 250 miles. We cannot see lights from 250 miles.
So what is the point of your
From
existence?
200
What is this all
miles, you
about?
can see maybe the reflection at night of New York
What
in
is
the
this-
clouds.
What is this all about?
That they are lying to us about who we are and what we
You're not
are.
lying to me. You're not lying to me.
Oh, absolutely.
Because I'm a
And
believer.
you're a believer in what?
So in
God.
that we went to the moon and that's the space station
Yeah,
and
but that's
whatever.
that's all man-made, pseudoscience. The truth is that we are.
So's
much-
God. So's God.
Well, I used to think
and
the
how
same
many
thing.
people believe in God and nobody's seen him?
Well,
Nobody
I
knows
think that
or
I might
her.
have, but
or her.
well,
No,
I'm
no,
not
or
into.
her.
It's not about religion.
Open your mind.
Remember, religion is a
There's
form
no
of
proof
control.
God is a man.
No, God
It
is.
could be a
all.
woman.
Could be everything.
It could be a different being altogether. There's millions of people that believe in God.
Yeah, but I think religion is a control, just like this science is a
I
control.
think it's superstition, but
Yeah,
you
so
know,
I,
that's
but,
my point of
but
view.
there is, but your ancient forefathers, right? The British people on this island that were what they called heathens or non-believers or whatever. They were beaten, burned, and forced into religion, all of them. And when they started, in the last few generations, started losing faith with religion, religion gave them science and said, you're insignificant, you're a speck, you're not part of nature, and we own you. And basically what the world does today is own individuals as servants. We are tax-paying. You are forced to pay tax whether you like it or not.
Yeah.
And that's not what, nature doesn't allow that. We should not be charging interest on each other, and we should not be taxing each other. If you want to give something towards your town's whatever, old people or whatever, that's up to you.
That's
but
chaos. That's
I
chaos.
can't. Well, I think that what we see in the world now is chaos.
How do you get about? Do you drive?
Yes.
You do. And
I
what-
use
Where do you
use the
drive?
technology.
Where do you drive? Down the road?
Yeah.
So you want a road?
Yeah. Yes.
So you want street lighting, you want
Yes,
signs,
yes.
you want people to maintain the road.
Yeah.
So the easiest way, unless you're going to get your money out and pay by the inch, you pay a tax.
Do you know that all of our big cities,
charge.
Liverpool, London, Manchester, New York, they were all built before the invention of income tax? Do you know that?
No.
So
that's
the income
rubbish.
tax was only introduced after the World War. And
No,
who we
you're
pay-
rubbish.
yeah.
No,
Yeah.
no, no.
Yeah.
Sorry, look, you're talking poppycock now, because there's always been taxes. That's why we had crusades and the royalty used to come and raid villages.
Yeah, but what you're
and plunder
forgetting in
things.
all of that
it
is
was
that
a tax.
Yeah, what you're forgetting in all of that is that we are the inheritors of the earth. So the value of the earth, the minerals that are in the earth, belong to you and me. But the corporations have stolen that and taken that money from us.
No,
And now
man.
we're happy to pay for
No, look,
half of our life's earnings just to have a roof, if more of our life's earnings, to have a roof over our head and feed ourselves.
And drive
So
down
it
the
is
road.
slavery.
And
Yeah,
freedom.
yeah. I mean, this,
And
this,
street lighting.
yeah, but all of that stuff could be provided out of the wealth of the land. If the corporations and the royals and all of these didn't hold so much of the people's wealth, then it would be shared equally, and we wouldn't have to pay those things.
Brother, it's never going to happen. It wouldn't work. I don't like paying tax, probably more than you.
Yeah, I don't think I should be able to force you to do anything. I shouldn't be able to force you to do anything. That's the golden rule.
How much tax
no
do you
harm.
pay in a year?
Well, not as much as I used to. I used to work for the government.
Yeah.
And then I walked away from all of that. And I was paying a decent amount in tax, but
What's a decent amount? Ballpark figure?
15.
15 grand. Yeah, I pay £56,000 a year.
And that's before you buy anything.
56 grand I pay every year.
That's a lot. But that's before you buy anything. If you go to the shop, obviously you're paying a lot more.
Well,
tax.
it's not, no.
And the fuel, 80%
Because
tax.
to earn the money, I have to buy raw materials
Yeah,
and equipment and expertise.
tax on that.
And I've got to have a building, and I've got to have roads to drive down.
Yeah.
I've got to have the whole infrastructure.
We do need.
And the taxes pay for that.
Well, we do need an infrastructure. I wouldn't disagree with that.
Without an
Society
infrastructure, you
needs
can't-
organisation.
the infrastructure's not going to...
But it's what's sitting behind that organisation. Because I went to war for my country in South Africa in 1987. I believed communist threat, and so we did national service. I'm on the front line, doing my bit for my country, right, fighting these tanks in Russia, in Angola, Russian tanks. And I believed in all of that stuff. And when I wrote a book about it about 15 years ago, I got given information that showed me that the battles that I was involved in had been choreographed, that it was like staged so that we would create a certain outcome.
Yeah,
And that was a shock to me. And then
that's called warfare.
No, but the thing is that when the Americans and the Russians and a senior British guy said, told me this, we were watching your battles in Angola at the time. We were very aware of what was going on. The CIA were on the ground with us. We saw them, although they weren't working with us, they were working with Jonas Savimbi and supporting him. We knew that, the Americans didn't know that. I spoke to a senior general, a former commandant, brigadier of the Scottish Army, and he said to me, my friends who are senior generals, this is a year ago, he says, my friends who are senior generals said, you wouldn't believe what we're up to in Ukraine. Now we see things popping off and people blaming the British for that. And guess what? They'll just try and create the scenario once again, like they did with Pearl Harbor, like they did with the Gulf of Tonkin. They'll create the scenario where war is inevitable. And then young men are back on the front line fighting someone else's war, enriching the bankers who are lending money to both sides, proven in World War II that George Bush's family was lending money to Hitler, proven. So we're in a game that is pitting me against you and putting us into baskets of black and white and English and German and etc., Jewish. So we will fight each other. And we will be in a state of constant war and conflict and fear and all of that. The easiest way to control people is through fear. And that's what we saw in
So what is it you want to achieve?
I go around where I can and try and inform people, because I think that, it is what they say is evil prospers when good men do nothing. And I discovered this 10 years ago, that nothing that I learned, nothing that I taught my children. I was into Darwinism, evolution, the whole thing I was in that. And I discovered 10 years ago that that was entrained in me, because I wasn't into religion. I was much happier with the idea that we come from nothing. It's all insignificant, rather than we are an expression of something divine. Not a religious conversation, but something higher than what this is. And when we leave this, we return to that. We're here for a test, for a reason. And if I'm going to just shrink and sit in my mother's basement or whatever, and just hide away online and tell people that they're being fed a load of shit, then that doesn't feel very courageous to me. I much more prefer to come out and say, hey, listen, there's something for you to pay attention to. I believed everything that came down the BBC. Everything. And now I know that the BBC is an extension of the military industrial complex.
Every state-owned media out there, they're all a mouthpiece, a tool of control to some degree.
Agreed.
We used to sit in our country when the Cuban Missile Crisis was on, and the threat of communists, and we were all scared of the communism.
Yeah.
And we said that the Russian TV, was corrupt and it was browbeating their people.
Yeah.
And it comes to light, the BBC have been doing that to us for years.
Always.
And you got to come to terms with it and just say, do you know what?
But if
That's
it's that
the way it
powerful,
works.
my friend, if it's that powerful that the system controls, just like it did for us in apartheid in South Africa, South African BBC, SABC, just switched one day from being, supporting the regime to then supporting ANC. Made no sense to me. You know, it's like, wow. But so they're a mouthpiece for the government, and they'll offer you a left and a right paradigm, a red and a blue, so that you and your neighbor can squabble over who's Trump or this or whatever. They'll give you all of that, but that's so that there is a sense of, well, I mean, I've been in the UK 30 years, so I've seen it how we so hated the Conservatives that the new Labour, Tony Blair, was going to wash it all clean. And by the end of the Labour government, the Blair government, people hated on Labour. And the joke was, oh, we've spent all the money. So the Conservatives come in, or the coalition, and then it's, you know, the politics is like we get to hate them so much, and then we have to go with the other team. And they just, well, like we say, two cheeks of the same arse. Two wings of the same bird, and it's the same bird is controlling the media. And I saw it in 2020. The media in all the 5 countries that I visited in 2020 was saying exactly the same thing, like out of the same playbook. And we then discovered that in 2019 there was a drill run by the World Health Organization that had all these countries sort of sign up to, this is what you're going to do in the pandemic, this is how you're going to create fear. The British government paid marketing companies and these mind control people millions to come up with the most powerfully scary messages to frighten people into behaving themselves. And you know that if I'm exerting fear on you, it's because I have a hidden agenda. I should come to you in love and say, but we were feared on purpose so that we could be controlled.
Oh yeah, it was.
And mankind is so controlled and so lost in the system that we are going to create what seems to me to be coming. It sounds a little dystopian, but this sort of Chinese-style social credit system in which every action that you take is monitored through electronic means, through CCTV that's all controlled, and your car eventually, I know I'm getting dystopian, but they've already trialed 15-minute cities in this country where, like, we want everything to be within your 15-minute city, like in Oxford. If you can't get it outside of, if you can only leave that 15-minute zone 100 times a year. Otherwise, it's your carbon this, your carbon that, and so on. And by the way, if Earth is not a spinning ball in space and it's this created thing that is like an electromagnetic bubble, we can't destroy it. We can't create climate change. Climate change will occur because naturally there are cycles over thousands of years of cold and hot periods.
Oh, I don't know. He seems to want to go to the toilet, and I've stopped him twice.
Yes, right.
Would you like to take a little flyer, just
I'll take a flyer.
share my thoughts with you?
Cool.
And I wish you well.
I wish you
Thanks
well
for the
too,
conversation. I appreciate it.
sir. Good day.
Go well. All the best.
Cheers, Dan.
And don't pay so much tax. It's theft. All right.
What was
Are
that?
you guys able to see this? I don't know if... I wasn't sure before the conversation started, but my phone says you've got to rotate. I've got to rotate it because it's the wrong way around. It does this to me every time. I swear it's like by design. I know I'm being paranoid. That was a good conversation.
Yeah?
You actually turned it around. Can you guys see this all right? Hi, Cameron. Can you guys see this all right? Squirrel, nice to see you. Can it's fine. Awesome. That's good to know. All right, we're in the game.
Yeah.
First one off the bat. That was he started angry and we shook hands on the way out.
Oh, nice.
So he was pissed off and he was like, this is bullshit. But we found some common ground, you know. And there you go. So Dean and Sarah are here. So hello. We're in Cirencester with two very strange looking buildings, odd attachments in this building when you go into it. Doesn't make sense. But this is Cotswolds, what they call very popular. Cotswold stone is very famous. It's going to be hard for this guy, I can tell already. Would you mind hanging on to that for me a moment? You can hold that a minute. abyssal plain, a vast, flat underwater plain. Yeah, as I said earlier, it was the weather was a little kinder, nicer. We would have more people here, but let's see what happens today. My new
You go, you
flyer.
hold on to those.
Yeah, some flyers. How are you guys doing? It's yeah, it's a really sort of quaint, what they call market town. And by the way, according to this, Carinium was first recorded by Ptolemy. He's flat earther. It was recorded in the Doomsday, or it's a Domesday survey. Hi, would you like a flyer?
No, I'm not thinking.
Can I give you a flyer, my man? I feel the clouds lightening, and it's happened before, so I might be crying wolf. Huh?
Get some chalk down, hopefully.
Hopefully, yeah, it dries out a bit more. See how I did this with a line all the way across my graphics. You do something like this and you go, oh, why didn't I add that other thing? Right. Can I give you a flyer?
Thank you.
Cheers. That woman's carrying a lot of energy. It's not so good. Can I give you a flyer?
Cheers, boss.
Cheers. This is my handout. No, I'm good. But when you get a mic, you've got to use that all the time. I'll do that. Mate, you've got to use that all the time. Sorry.
Okay.
And I've left the family home without me. Monica, Dean and Sarah. Tomorrow, Andrea is probably going to join us in Oxford. So we can look forward to that, and we know the weather's going to be better. Can I give you a flyer?
Thank you.
You're welcome. Good day. Could I offer you some information?
Thank you.
I think his village is very like.
Can I offer you some information today?
No, thank you. They are, but they're not always there.
It's a little posh here. It was either that or Newbury. These are my top choices today. Ma'am, some information for you today? Okay. Some information for you guys?
Right, thanks.
Have a nice day. Yeah, unfortunately these bollards are just a bit short for my 1 meter long poster. Needs to be. Yeah. Tough for that conversation with that chap. It's nice to, achieve common ground. And, this is unfortunately what flat Earth is quite a divisive subject. It really triggers the heck out of people. Some information for you?
No thanks. Cheers.
All right. Earth is flat. Gee, it's just a quick look to know that, I suppose, why the line, maybe why does it matter? Can I offer you some information today?
Sorry.
Oh, yeah,
Thank you.
You're welcome. I mean, I don't want to write anybody off, but there is we have to be honest, there are like limitations set in place for some people. I don't mean that to be at all like I'm special. Can I offer you some information today? Oh, my banner's taking a little hit there.
How much extra street?
Got the plumber on the job. I'm filming in Cirencester, known as the capital of Cotswold. Cirencester, C-I-R-Censor. Some old maps here, actually. That's better. Good job.
Lenders may have illegally pocketed billions in hidden commissions. Now millions of drivers are cashing in. Good evening. We're following break.
Can I give you some information?
Okay, thank you.
hope you enjoyed our live stream last night, Andrew and I, we gather. Thought it was a pretty good conversation, bouncing around a bit with the old chat room. Look at the... Let's see where No, I can't really see the screen. It's because it's saying orientation is locked. It's going to put like a haze over the whole screen, so I can't see it. You want to fly? Have a nice day. Yeah, it's put a haze over the whole screen, so it's really, really hard to see. I'm not sure at this minute. I need to be compassionate. And with people with equanimity, you might have missed those, so I had a nice conversation with a conversation that morphed into a good conversation.
The Earth is not a globe.
Yes.
A flat Earth, are you?
No, I'm just not a globe. If we can just stick with it's not a globe, and then we could try and work out what it is. But we know on the basis of water always finding its level when at rest, and needing to be contained, that our oceans must be level and contained.
You're filming me, aren't you?
I don't need to film you, I can film myself. I put a little flyer as to why, because people go, well, why would they lie? What would be the point? You know, it's so much effort. Well, there's a lot of effort because you are attentive to it.
I agree with that.
Oh, yeah. Climate change on a flat Earth. Climate change is a complete hoax. Impossible for us to destroy the terrarium. It's self-cleaning, but the climate moves around.
I'm Jewish. I support Israel. Pro-Palestinian, so if you are, I don't support you.
Well, I mean, it's not that I'm not choose side. If I was Muslim or Christian or whatever, I would be choosing a side. And the same is true. The same is true with apartheid in South Africa. You know, we were choosing a side based on, and I've got a lot of Jewish friends. And my sister's married to a Jewish man. I've been to Israel myself. You know, I don't have like an anti, because I believe that we are all
Centre of the universe.
and we are all the essence of whatever God is. We're just divided.
Absolutely.
We're divided by all these different names for, oh, we're in charge of you, we're the chosen ones, or we're the, we're more special than you, the blacks say this about, or the whites say this about, and so that's all divide and conquer. And if we're in the game and caught up with that stuff, then we've kind of given away our sovereignty.
When it comes to the Jews, they would leave everybody alone and wouldn't push themselves on anybody. It's just the whole world's constantly attacking them. And their theory is that when their Messiah comes, then everyone will see exactly what you're explaining, that we're all equal and that they shouldn't be. And that is the whole essence of Judaism. But everybody gets it wrong.
But people are weaponized against each other. And they are used, as pawns. If we, let's just say I was Jewish too, and that we would have to say that the other Abrahamic faiths are mistaken. We would have to agree on that. And so that would mean that those preachers, as much as they love their flock and their family, they are misteaching it.
No, because God chose the Jews to be. I don't want us to turn to a religious conversation.
No, that's fine. But on a physical conversation, we can't prove that the Earth is globe. That's
We can't prove that Earth is
Einstein
globe.
himself said it. We can't prove that the Earth is moving through space. We cannot prove that. And then water, like the Dead Sea or whatever body of water you want to pick, when it's at rest, it's perfectly level. You can see all the way to Jordan over the Dead Sea. You can see things at distances that you should not be able to see in our reality if it curves in the way that they say, if we live on a sphere.
So you are flat Earth.
Well, I don't use the term because it carries it's like an anti-vaxxer term, isn't it? It's like, oh, you or whatever, you're anti this or anti. No, I'm not necessarily saying.
Anti-vaxxer, yeah.
You are.
I am.
Good. Well, good. I have
I've had spaces all day long for the last 2 years talking about all these things. So.
Well, I have an 8-year-old child who's never had a needle break his skin. Never. And he's super healthy.
Yeah,
we know that
and
God
intelligent. I
yeah.
think it helps.
Yeah. Well, we're home world schooling him rather than putting him through the system. But I put older children through the system, and they went to university based on the heliocentric, we come from monkeys evolution line, which I
Just
pushed
having
them.
a conversation. It's been quite heated. Yeah.
Whatever. Well, you know, we cannot be. But I used to be an atheist, so I come from understanding that I wanted us to have been evolved and that there was life on Mars. I wanted all of that stuff. And then it was pointed out to me that 9/11 didn't happen the way that they tell us in the media. And two, that we cannot prove that Earth water is curved in any way, shape or form, that it's going to bend and form a sphere because of gravity. And gravity is something
That's the
called-
only thing I disagree. I'm not sure.
You see, gravity is implanted in your mind 5 or 6 years old.
That's gravity.
Well, yeah, but if I filled this with if I filled the space
If we
with
didn't
water,
have gravity, the sea would be floating around.
No. Well, it's the upside down water that I have a problem with. I understand density and buoyancy, right? If this thing was lighter than air, it would have floated up, like a helium balloon, it would have floated up. But if we fill this area now with water, a lot of the things that are sitting on the floor, according to gravity, would float up. Why? Because they're now in a medium which is more dense than them, and they're not displacing enough of that density to sink. They will simply float, just like a ship will float because it is displacing a vast amount of weight by comparison to the weight
How
of
do you
steel.
explain like people from space taking pictures of the Earth?
Well, okay, so I could do some of that with high altitude planes, like the sky planes that can get to 70,000 feet. I can also take weather balloons to 120,000. This is what we could do without any government money. We could go to 120,000 feet and get a camera to point down, and we've done that. And all we see from there is sort of whitish cloud. It's hard to make out any land or anything like that. And you see a flat horizon in the distance. Now that's only 120,000 feet, which is about 20 miles. no,
I think
40
you
miles.
see. I think you can see the curve when you're. Because I mean, I spent time on ships and things, and
Yeah.
in the middle of the sea, and,
Yeah.
and I think you can see the curve.
Yeah, so we're told that if we're standing on the beach, we can see the curvature of the Earth from about 3 miles. That's the ship is going to go over the horizon after about 3 miles. That's what we're told. But if we wait for that ship to go away for another 10 minutes after we can't see it and take up a powerful Nikon zoom camera, we can bring that same ship back in and it looks super level. And by the way, if we went into a 10-story building, we would see that ship for longer. And then if we went to 200 meters in a hot air balloon, we would see that ship even further, still on flat water. And then when I'm on the plane over the Mediterranean, as I had flown, I see ships for 100 miles around me, all on what looks like a mirror. So we cannot see it.
So what do you think it
That's
is?
perspective.
It's not a globe then?
Well, that's what's shrinking everything into the distance. As I've got on my flyer there, that everything shrinks down into the distance, like those street lights, yeah? Everything shrinks down and goes, it's artists will tell you this, everything compresses into a single focal point, right, in the distance. And so that's what's happening with our lights, our planes. They're not flying over a curve, they're simply going away from us and seeming to descend, because that's what happens to things that go away from you, is that they get smaller. You know,
Well,
these
what's your point in trying to prove this?
well, if this is true, then
It's true.
if
It
this
is.
true,
Oh, if
if
it's
this
true.
is true, then it means that every element of government, religion, all of the things of power in the world are all working together to deceive God's creation. And in religion, they say that there would be like a 1,000 years of the devil's reign. Well,
What religion are you?
I don't have
You
to.
don't.
I would, as I say, if I choose, then it means taking sides. And I'd rather be in the middle rather than blue or red. I don't get into politics anymore, rather than, because I see it all as a trick. And it's like it wants your energy. It wants to take your energy and say, yes, you must attach to this. By the way, if you've been born in a Muslim family in the Middle East or whatever, you would be maybe wearing a hijab today and saying women should wear hijab. Trust me. Well, why do you think that those women?
Because they didn't all wear hijabs 30 years ago.
Well, I agree with you. But I've spoken to Muslim women who say yes, it's right that we cover ourselves.
Religious people cover their hair
And
wear hijabs.
yeah, but amongst them will be those who say, if you do not do this, you are
But they're
somehow.
the people controlling religion.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, this is your shop.
Yeah.
Okay. No, we and what? Well, you sell stones. Is that what you sell?
Yeah.
Okay, so for us, everything if the Earth is not a globe, what is it? Well, it's an electromagnetic system, or electromagnetic torus. Everything is, the flower of life. Everything is a toroidal system, a turning vortex system. There's the macrocosm, which we call the universe, and the microcosm, which is you.
So how come if you fly to Australia and you go to Australia and then you go round and you come back that way, how can you do that?
Well, okay, so for ancient times, everybody thought the Earth was flat, and they sailed around the Earth no problem. And we look at the flat Earth map, which is similar to the United Nations logo map. You can sail well.
United Nations.
Yeah, but this is the control wheel.
Yeah.
They've got 33 sections in their logo. The number 33 is important to the people. Right? They are part of the control, and they are hiding the nature of what our world really is, and it's electromagnetic, which means the stones. There is definitely secrets, and so it's not even a secret that there are secret societies, and some of them extremely secret, And so yes, you can move your way up in the hierarchy from Freemasonry to orders of this and orders of that, and so on. Club of Rome, and then you get into more secret stuff, and then that's when you see, wow, the people in control. It doesn't matter whether you look in Africa, Asia.
I agree there that the people in control is conspiracy. That they're controlling us through religion and everything. But I think that the original religion, which is Judaism, which is a way of life more than sort of a religion. Well, mind you've got the Hindus, which is ancient as well.
Did Israel? So you're anti-vax?
Yeah.
Did Israel force people to take the vax?
No. You had the option.
I think that
they were very strong.
I think Israel is one of the highest vax countries in the world.
Yeah, because Netanyahu was the first one to get the thing off the plane.
But because that means that Israeli
my
people,
kids are Israeli and they didn't get it.
Well, yeah, but that's because
but also because they didn't work for a company, so they didn't get pressured to, so they were able to make that choice.
Jewish people were not excused from participating in this trial of mRNA. You must know how harmful this has been. And so these people who claim are the chosen people and who are meant to be like looked after by their thing, they were put down the same propaganda and same lie and same what I see as a So,
yeah, but that wasn't the religious people making them
no, that's not about the.
And a lot of the religious people didn't take the vaccine.
No, but by the way, the churches in this country, they closed their doors. People could not come and practice their faith and find solace in God and what have you. So they were ripped out of their normal stuff.
No, it's
The
all
churches,
a thing against. It's all anti-God. The whole system
I
is
was at Salisbury
anti-God.
Cathedral, and they'd opened up a vaccine centre in the cathedral. The cathedral is closed for
evil.
business,
No,
but
it's
you can
evil.
come and get a needle.
No, it's evil.
I didn't see religious houses stand up and say no.
Well, the Orthodox Jews, they didn't get vaccinated, and
there are a
kept
few,
in there.
and maybe the Jehovah's Witnesses are very anti-needle. They may have also taken that same view, but as a collective, I didn't see the Muslim, the Jewish, the Christian heads of state go, listen, this is not, you trust God, you do not serve two masters.
No, everything's anti-God at the moment.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just the devil at work.
And so I say to people that if it comes to if the conversation gets this far, is that I think that what the story of Christ is the story of each of us. That we carry whatever.
Jesus was Jewish.
Christ. Yes, I tell people that too. He was Jewish, and so were his persecutors.
He was used by the Romans to create. They created the religion around him. Jesus didn't create Christianity. He was just a naughty Jew that let out the secrets.
Like 300
too soon.
years after Jesus, the religion really kicks off, right?
Yeah.
So
and it was created to control the people.
and
That's what I mean. Other religions that stem from Judaism were created by man and not by God.
And they were beaten, burned.
And Islam, you can
They
just
were put on the stake. People were treated in terrible ways in court. I'll catch up with you later, Harry. Good conversation
It
there.
will.
But obviously, yeah, well, as you see, it's good conversation. She's Jewish, so she's got a particular sort of bias towards, you know, the Jewish kind of thing, which is understandable because, you know, your programming is your programming. I said to her, if you'd been born Muslim, you'd be wearing a hijab or something along those lines, you know. So, yeah, she sells stones here, you know, so she knows stuff, but you know, it all comes from the, you know, heliocentric version of stuff, and the, you know, still believing in the institutions, you know, and her religion, of course. All divide and conquer, but the weather's holding up a little bit.
Pavement's dry.
Pavement is drying, yeah.
Behind that.
Have you had any conversations?
Not at all.
Not yet, no.
Ah.
A few people took photos and stuff and
Don't
reading
really
it.
see. There's a lot of faces.
Barbecues up in the cameras. We'll get a strike on this one, or it won't be shown in some places or something because of the music. Hey ho.
Oh, did you have one?
That other guy I spoke to, he said, I pay 50 grand a year in tax. He wanted, how much you pay in tax? I exaggerated. I pay 56 grand in tax.
Get on it.
He doesn't like it. Most people don't. But if we didn't have that, you wouldn't have a road to ride on.
Imagine how much extra work he's had to do to pay that.
Yeah. People don't realize that, you know, that there is all this money, you know, attached to our straw man, and that's such a deep conversation.
Yeah.
So it's a made up scarcity. There needn't be any scarcity in the world. Imagine everyone got $1 million at the age of 21, or maybe like 100,000, and then eked it up over the years, you know. Water's always going to seek level.
I don't blame her. It wasn't her fault. She was only repeating what she'd been taught. I went through life believing that life.
Don't let her change your mind.
Let her take your mind, man.
I don't know whose music this is, but he'll probably give me a strike. Let him do your mind.
Take the pies, man.
So whirling through space on
Alright.
the road.
You're welcome.
What I was told from my educator. So I live my life so selflessly, there ain't gonna be no hell for me. I'll do what I want with no care for others, with no respect for my brother.
Earth is flat, not a spinning ball.
This so-called reality is
Earth is flat, space is fake. I never went to the moon. Tim Peake is an imposter.
just a pack of lies, man. Don't let them take your mind.
Good day, sir.
Take your mind, man. Don't let them
Sir is not actually a kind word to use on someone. No.
Short for servant.
But most people don't realize that we are in servitude here. Let her take your mind, baby. What if Jason Disbury now saw that guy?
Real. And I'll tell you, man, that's a bitter pill. So I question everything else.
Come on, Cirencester, pull it out the bag for me.
Jehovah's Witnesses have been having a better day today. That's scary.
This lady is anti-V, the one I spoke to here. So she's. But I reminded her because she's like, no, there's Jewish people, this and that. I said, yeah, but Israel was one of the most vaxxed of all countries. They were hit pretty hard with it. Can I give you some info?
Oh no, fine, thank you.
Give her a quick read before, like. Can I give you some information?
Oh no, that's okay, thank you.
Some information, sir?
I started to connect with God sent up intelligent man. There are lots. I soon realized that the earth was flat. It's not a belief, man. It's a fact. And once I found out that reality, well, it did a funny thing to me. For a while there, I was pretty shocked, but now I know that there is a God. And well, once you get to that point of understanding, and once you know that it's landing, once you know that space is fake, you feel your life with a different taste. It ain't just random chance that we're here. We ain't living unknown.
Earth is flat. Change your mind. Some information. Yeah, that's a bit grey. Yeah, quiet there. Yeah, some information for you. We're going around informing people we've been lied to about space travel. Do you think we landed on the moon? 60 years ago?
Oh, is this about moon landing being fake?
Well, all of space is fake, actually. Thermodynamics demands that if you want to have a vacuum, you need to seal it. You need to contain it. Well, like a deodorant can or a soda can or, a canister of Cala gas. All of that has to be in a sealed container. If you break the container, there's going to be an equalization, a spreading of the gas into the available space.
If I light space on fire, it's just going to blow up or something?
Space as far as we know doesn't exist. The vacuum of space, as we're told. We believe that we're inside an enclosure. That to have a pressure system, we have to be inside of a canister. A large canister that has a 100-mile-high roof, perhaps, but a large canister.
Oh, okay. So, you're saying that we can't be inside it because we can't be, inside a deodorant can or something?
Yeah, we would have to be inside of the can, not on the outside of the can, to have pressure. If you took the pressure in your car tire, you couldn't have it on the outside of the tire. It would have to be inside there. And inside of that pressure system, you would have gradients from the heavier stuff at the bottom and the lighter stuff right at the top. And that's what we find in Earth, is we've got water at the bottom, and then gases get lighter and lighter as we ascend, lighter and colder. So the idea that we're moving through what they call the Van Allen radiation belts, which are said to be 1,000 miles high, we can't do it now. This is what NASA said. We don't have technology to leave low Earth orbit. And yet 60 years ago, they did it no problem about 6 or 7 times.
Yeah.
So we think that whole thing was staged. And if you go back and look at the moon landings now with the sort of eyes that you have for the 21st century, you'll see that that's very poor quality CGI.
It is kind of, I do think I've seen videos, it does look kind of it does look a bit rubbish, the quality. I feel like if they would have faked it, they'd got lighting right.
Yeah, the lighting, and also you can also see the sound stage. You can see what looks like ground and then what looks like a back wall And then there's there's a lot of anomalies. Like for example, when one of the lunar landers leaves the moon's surface, a camera is filming it and films it and pans up.
Really?
Now there's no one there to pan up, and there's no one to send the information back in the 1960s back to the module. They didn't have Wi-Fi, they didn't have Bluetooth.
Yeah.
So how could they get that footage if no one's left
It's kind
on
of
the
weird
moon?
how they like attach the camera to the base module, like
Yeah.
it not get destroyed.
Yeah.
I mean, I know you can like put pretty resistant cameras, but I kind of that's
And-
what because they like attach it to a leg of the eagle or something.
Land,
They
yeah,
claim.
yeah.
And like
And those legs, they land in this dusty bowl with a 10,000-foot retro rocket, and no dust is thrown up and thrown onto those feet. They're perfectly clean.
Yeah.
So when you look at those pictures under 4K resolution, you find that they look like cardboard. There's joints that aren't sealed. With a spacesuit, they never made a spacesuit that they could have put a man in a vacuum chamber with. They've never tested a vacuum chamber spacesuit scenario successfully, ever. So we don't believe that if there was a vacuum of space, we couldn't get into it. And if there was a vacuum of space, we would have to be sealed off from it. Otherwise, the atmosphere would be ripped into the available space, which is infinite, instantly.
So if we're the center of the universe, does that mean we don't go around the sun?
No, the sun goes around us, but it doesn't go underneath us.
So you reject Copernicus' law then?
Yeah, or the Copernican theory that it's that.
Theory,
and even we have things that don't work with that theory as well. Like for example, Venus. Venus is on the inside of the Earth. Between us and the sun is Venus.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. I get that,
So we should never be able to see the star because it should always be inside of either we're looking out into the sun and it's in between us and the sun and we shouldn't be able to see it reflecting, or we're looking the other way from the sun, which is nighttime, and we wouldn't be able to see Venus. So there's a lot of anomalies with it, and the three-body problem. We can't get a computer to kind of model how three bodies can fly around each other and with a gravitational attraction and not go into some kind of weird spiral immediately. So that these things have been keeping a circuit for billions of years while traveling millions of years per day, millions of miles per day through the universe, through the galaxy. And yet we all stay in alignment for thousands of recorded years. Same with the stars. That there's no parallax with the stars, despite thousands of years of observation of these things being in the same place. So no, it makes much more sense that we live inside it like a disco, and we've got the lights moving over our head, but the floor is not moving.
That's crazy.
Yeah, and
it's like the corporation thing, like that church where you like speak to the dead or something.
The corporation is bastardization of two words: oration and corpse. Corpse being dead, oration being speaking. So the speaking dead is what we're giving our energy to. Instead of dealing with the living man, we deal mostly with Tesco's and government, which is a corporation, the police, which is a corporation, and all these other things are corporations.
Oh, I see what you mean. Yeah. I didn't know if you're affiliated with like those ones that churches that speak to the dead or not.
No, not affiliated to any of that.
No, I just didn't understand. Yeah, it's a dead speak. Right, I see.
Yeah. I mean, most things in our world have been choreographed and controlled. So there's not a lot that you can, not many organizations you can join to go, we know the full story. I think most things, religions, governments, it's all controlled to control your divine purpose, to your essence. So that's my thesis.
Oh, cool. Yeah, I'll have a look at that.
All right, nice to chat.
Nice
all
to
the
hear
best.
different views.
Thanks. Cheers.
Oh my days.
Well, I'll explain it to you quickly. The thing is that the bodies of water are always level. If you notice here, you know that this, what we call across the pond, could be, if I shrunk it down to a lake. Yeah, not you. I'm not filming you. This is just information that we can take a body of water, any size that we can measure, and we cannot find enough. So if it's a lake that's a mile or 100 miles away, we're going to get the same result. And even if I can only measure 50 miles at a time, I can prove that we cannot see any bending over that body of water.
So you think the road is...
Well, obviously we have topography. I've put, this here is North America. That's a cut across of North America. We know that on the east coast to the west coast, the sea level is the same, but you will go to over topography of 3,000 miles in altitude, 3,000 meters in altitude across the journey, but you'll go up 3,000 and you'll come down 4,000 across the entire 3,000 miles journey across North America. So all bodies, yes, the Earth is what you can call flat, plane, and we have undulations once you come off the sea level, but otherwise everything is flat. The sea is one sea, so one ocean in the Earth. We can sail around it the same way as I can drive around Cirencester. Doesn't make it a ball. We can sail around the Earth and we can show maps how.
What about the fact that when you're up in space and you look down and it's...
Well, because we've never done it. No, you and I have never. I can provide you with something on TV that shows Sandra Bullock being in space and immovable gravity. It doesn't mean she was really in space, and she looks like she's above the Earth, and you can see her ball. So, yes, when we look back at 1960s space footage, the original spacewalk, you can see it's been done on stage. It's so obviously fake. All the best. You can support this work at Patreon, my link tree, etc., etc.
Get a white disc, I think that plate on the sofa, so if it's like iPhone, the white disc
And that's Samsung.
Turn it down.
I don't think the iPhone would do that. That would be global news. It would be like it would be everywhere, wouldn't it? Like so. I do love a conspiracy, but I just feel like you've got to keep it, because otherwise you can run away with it. All this parasite stuff, like the body will tell you if you've got parasites. You'll have inflammation, something will be happening. So that's just my opinion on that stuff. It's just a scheme. Once you watch one of these videos, you're going to see a link to something else. And this is what I keep telling us. I've been doing this since I was a kid. I've been on the internet before anyone, you know what I mean? When people were Googling it, I was telling people, like before people even knew that term, I was doing that. So I've been down the rabbit, I've seen it all, but flat Earth, I mean, water goes to 6, doesn't it? So that's arguable. How can it wrap round the Earth? It's just, who knows, man. I mean,
you've only got to get on a kid's playground, ride on a little roundabout and do about 10 miles an hour and you nearly, flying off.
But there are things, there are physics with that. So it's like with the cup of water, like obviously if you move it fast, it's not going to fall out. So
that's if it's upside down and you're containing it with the bottom of the bucket. If you did it the other way round, it would fly out.
Yeah, but it's like being in a car. If you're moving at 100 miles an hour or on a train, if you jump, you're not going to then, the train's not going to leave you because your body's now moving at that speed. That's basic physics.
But now do it with the shell off.
Do it on the roof.
Yeah, but because now you're going to meet resistance. You're going to hit the wind.
Yeah.
You're going to hit, so you've.
Where are we?
We're in the wind.
Some days it's not.
Okay, but there's some days there's wind, there's some days there's not.
Yeah, and that wind doesn't apply to like the direction of the spin. Hey, it's got nothing to do with the spin at all.
Apparently it does.
You get
vortex. I mean, we don't know this, but this is why you need to use
wind, and then tomorrow we'll have a westerly wind. How does that work if there is any spin?
Because we're moving apparently in space.
So here's the thing. I used to think this as well. So what the mainstream model will tell you is that we're spinning 1,000 miles an hour on the surface, and then as you go up higher and higher, the air column is moving even faster because it's staying with you. So it's relatively not moving. That's what they'd say. Yes, there'll be local winds on a particular day, and oftentimes it's from the southeast or southwest or whatever, but those have got nothing to do. That's the mainstream model. They won't say that it has anything to do with the spin of the Earth, that over thousands or millions of years, the atmosphere is just gradually caught up and just spins now with it. But you know that if you spin a bicycle wheel or whatever, the air that's right by the wheel will drag for a little bit, but the air that's this far away won't even notice.
We are contained in the Earth. We have an atmosphere which will also replicate, say, the train shell. Okay, so when you're moving on a train, you've got to look at the Earth's atmosphere as almost the same thing.
A container,
like
gas can't be a container. Gas needs a container. That's thermodynamics.
Right, but what I'm saying is, so I'm going back to my point on the train. Yeah, you were saying like, if there was winds, it would like. Of course, that's going to happen. When you're inside the train and you've got an encasing, the wind's not going to hit you.
So
it's going to hit the train. So now it's creating that. So, so if you remove that, the wind's going to hit you. It's going to blow you off the train. And that's just basic. So,
but the point is, we can't have gas as the container. Gas can be in the container, but it cannot be the solid roof. Now, when I have this conversation with other guys, they'll go, but it's gravity. Gravity is doing that. It's creating the bubble, the aeroplane. we're bouncing out of. But
I know,
so,
but
so,
but I'm trying to understand your logic here. So, if we can't have a gas container, do you think that the moon is
inside, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's inside the container. So we say there is a container. That in order to have the gas pressure that we find, which is heavier on the sea level and thinner as you go to altitude, and then eventually very super thin light gases at the top, while the helium balloon will go up, right? That's because it's going to find equilibrium up at 5,000 meters, 10,000 meters, wherever that is. But so no, everything is contained inside of that, and the light system, even the stars that we're told are billions of light years away, and all of that, they're inside of hundreds of miles, so they're very close to us. And what I give people this test, if you like, is to take your telescope that you can sort of fill your zoom finder with a star or part of the moon or whatever. Now try and look at this tower from 20 miles away and see how much you can actually resolve.
I've
You'll
seen
find that
videos of that debunking that stuff though, where they've done a laser across a really big lake.
Yeah.
And then they've gone, right, okay, well there should be curvature here, but there isn't.
Yeah.
Because of obviously the distance. I'm not a scientist, I don't know the terminology.
On
but
whatever
obviously,
website it is, they give you the
yeah, like
distance.
if you film like 500 miles that way, there should be some sort of curvature, but they haven't. They've done it right above the water's level, and the lasers seem to meet. So, right.
And that only work if it's flat. You know, the Lake Baikal in Russia, which is more than 300 miles long, it freezes at winter, and they turn it into an ice rink, 300 miles of flat ice. Guys have done lots of experiments with lasers, mirror flashes and so on over 20, 30 miles. We should not be able to see these things.
Look, you've got to understand, like, this is what the gravity explanation is for, So imagine a ball, but everything is being sucked towards that ball, Like, and that is what gravity is, isn't it? That would explain why we have, like, the water's flat everywhere, and everyone's, oh, look, if the earth's flat, but water sits flat. Look, my water right now is sitting flat. So it will just
no matter how you hold the bottom.
You know, and that's how it will sit. So that can work within the globe as long as gravity is real, of course. Because we're being right now, if I drop this, it goes to the floor.
Correct, but if I filled this area with water, it would float.
No, it wouldn't. It would
Your body
run right down there.
The water will run downhill. Water always runs downhill. But if I fill this,
it will find the path of least
resistance and run downhill.
Yeah.
That's what it does in reality. So the idea that gravity is going to stop a river from just falling off the side of a ball is where we come into this theory.
One thing, because I've got to go. Listen, I've got your YouTube channel. I would like to talk, but how do you explain the tides? Because we know how the tides work.
It's like a
from
breathing.
the Earth's bulge, right?
Well,
so
imagine
we rotate. We don't. The tides don't come in and out, right? That's not what happens. The tides don't come in and out. That's not true. We rotate into the bulge. Almost. Because of the gravity of the moon. The moon is pulling the tide towards the moon, almost, right? And the Earth rotates. So
a place on the equator
flat.
has like a 2-foot tide, and the place in England has a 25-foot tide. That doesn't make sense with the model we got. Swedish Sea has no tide. The Great Lakes have no tide. And the Mediterranean has no tide. It doesn't fit with the model of the moon's pulling it.
Is that true?
But what we find, this is the stuff I've always had, because for me it was curvature. I grew up by the sea, and that when you look at the curvature formula, over 10 miles is 800 inches of curvature, and I know that I could see streetlights and many things at more than 10 miles up the curve, up the coast. So no, we can explain tides on a flat Earth. Imagine if I had a terrarium, we had a swimming pool, for example. Where would the tides be greatest? Where the pumps are coming in, where the new water is being pumped in. So a system can have tides. If your mate jumps into the swimming pool, right, does a dive bomb into the swimming pool, the person nearest is going to be swamped. The person at the other end of the pool will barely notice the splash. And that's what we see on Earth, is that there are these nodes where there is high tides, a lot of big tides, and other places where there's very, very little tides. So yeah, we think this Earth is self-cleaning. Climate change is a hoax. We cannot.
I wish I was intelligent enough to challenge that.
No, you are.
Really know,
you absolutely are.
I mean, listen,
keep thinking, bro.
Debate.
You're on a good track. You're on a good track.
Chemtrails, Satanists, all that stuff.
All real. All real.
Friday, 7 o'clock on his channel.
Cheers. Nice one, guys. Some information. Earth is flat. I like the solfeggio.
I think it works well on the street, hey? Sorry? I think it works well on the street.
Yeah.
You're not coming up quite so
nice
peaceful frequency
nice and
going
chilled,
on.
And people don't realize they're getting hit with a 432.
Yeah. A secret weapon.
Yeah. Can't see my banner very well. So information. Yeah, I was hoping for a bit more footfall here.
Yeah.
To be honest. Yeah, maybe Newbury would have been better. But here we are. Some information.
No, thank you.
Shopping. Some information for you. Well, we got Oxford for tomorrow. Oxford to look forward to. So. It's raining again. Some information for you. Oh, you got some bonus. One for the fridge and one for the friends. I gave them 2 by mistake. Well, hopefully they don't end up on the floor. Sometimes I see them on the floor. You know, it's easy. Help me with the color scheme on this one. So this was his color scheme idea actually. Can I offer you some information? Right. Can I give you some information today? Take home. Chat room. Hello. Hey, isn't it? Oh, Mr. Obvious. Tell me what happens. No, upgrade. Some guy sent me a video of a guy driving a car with a helium balloon attached to a string on his gear stick, and when you see it move, when he takes a turn to the right, it also moves to the right, and people go, oh, that's proof of gravity or something, but that's actually demonstrating how the heavier air is moving to the other side of the car. You don't feel that when, you know, but the balloon is sensitive to that. It's like water rushing around a container, you know, and anything that's lighter than it, like the ping pong ball, will go to the opposite side. Obvious. I mean, some of this stuff, it becomes so obvious that, you know, and it's just people's cognitive bias that won't allow them to consider an alternate perspective, like that guy was saying. Well, you know, I think the word, I didn't get to say it back to him, but he said the word about gravity being, if the idea or the thing about gravity is I might put a little chalk down. I know it's not going to be like, it's still going to get walked on with wet shoes, eh? I wanted to get more people's attention.
Oh, yeah.
Ain't no such thing as Earth is rising at 9 meters. No, I don't agree with that. if like the plane example, if the Earth, the bubble, is moving, it's not having any bearing on us whatsoever. You know, when the elevator takes off, it feels heavy, and then you kind of, you know, ease off. But to keep going at 9 meters per second, we would have to be traveling so fast by now, and that whatever that is if so, is not measurable or felt. Everything is going up or down based on for me anyway, it's based on, you know, they talk about, the boffins talk about, you know, downward electrical bias and all that stuff, but and I'm not saying that doesn't exist, but for me things are predominantly affected by their displacement of the medium. If they displace more than they weigh, then they go up. And we displace less. Can I give you some information? Good. Can I give you some information today, sir?
Pardon?
Can I give you some information?
Oh, no, maybe
I'm not sure if you speak English. Some information today, sir?
thanks, mate.
Servant? Yeah, I think the 9 meters rising Earth thing is, you know, unnecessary to explain, or unneeded to explain why things are going up and down. Really, I don't see how anything that's outside of this we have any mechanism of measuring that movement. Like, you know, if this place was flying through the water or rising, you know, through the water, it wouldn't be a thing. I mean, maybe, you know, maybe there is that, you know, that's what it comes from, but I don't think that anything outside of this system is detected by us. Everything is within it. Earth is flat, guys. It's not a spinning ball. School was brainwashed. Some information for you? Some information.
Is that right? You could have got a...
Yeah, sorry, school was brainwashed. I know it's hot, yeah. A few more people moving around. I've got some information for you today, sir.
I won't read it.
Oh, okay. That's honest. Appreciate that. Some information, ma'am?
No, I'm good. Thank you.
All right. Sounded a bit American there. Some information for you today, sir?
That's fine, thank you.
You're welcome. Got some information for you?
I think so.
You may not have seen the beginning of the video, but this is... Doomsday. Sahara. This is a fascinating building. I could probably go in there for a minute.
No, next door.
Quickly. I could go in there for a moment. I don't know if the stream will hold up. I'll just keep it there. If it doesn't, just hold on. I'll walk back out and rejoin the stream. is old building mixed in with new building or new stuff. Quite a ceiling. Just wood, 1800s edition. This building is stitched together, I think. Different sections. Can I give you a flyer?
Ruby.
Can I give you some information?
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Cam and I are having a great time. Some information for you, sir? Some information? Some information for you? Got some information for you?
No, sorry.
Some info for you guys? But the corn hall up there, which is obviously been an important building at one time. Quite attractive. They built them nice wide streets. Horse and cart. Oops. Oh, on this thing. Some information for you, sir?
Sure thing.
Yes. Put a bit of chalk down here. Sarah, hold the camera for me. Hope you guys are having a decent chat in the room there. Next Friday we've got Nathan coming on, hopefully, to give us some deep insight on what he's been researching.
Yeah.
Can I give you some information today? That woman was pretty staunch about it. If you don't, you know, you've got that anger about the whole Palestine.
I'll go around the top right to kids speak nothing. And they've had the latest telly and nardy-dardy. Hello.
Sorry to interrupt your conversation. I was just
Yeah.
going to put a little chalk down. Would you mind holding the Camara?
You'll take it?
Camira.
Uh-huh.
Well.
You're going to put your artwork.
Oh, what am I going to write?
The Werbers. How you doing with your flat naps? Don't wrap round the ball.
You know, all the maps were once flat.
Still on?
Yeah.
I'll think about it. I mean, I did actually. Depending on stage I'm in.
Yeah, that's all right. It shows me that at the moment it's a bit of a Let me find what's
Scared her off.
That's it. Green screen. Space.
Yeah, but obviously,
We were taught that when we were young, but actually we can't prove it.
well, we've been satellites going around. Yeah, they could.
They use helium to use the whole satellites in the upper atmosphere, but they don't have things in the upper.
We've got our pictures in the bag as well. We've got our pictures in the bag.
Yeah. Do you believe we landed on the moon?
Sorry?
Do you believe we landed on the moon?
Yes.
And why have we been back in 50 years?
I don't know what's the use now.
You know, NASA claimed that they've lost the technology to go back to the moon. Is that possible? You're holding a phone in your hand that is many times more powerful than the computer they use to land us on the moon, and yet they can't do that today? When we look at the moon landing footage today, we find that it doesn't really come up to muster as being real. There's lots of things that are wrong.
Calculating routes to the moon is not that difficult.
They tell us that they've lost all the telemetry data that proves that they went. All of it. Thousands of reels of information.
I don't believe
They're
you.
admitting it
I don't
themselves.
believe you.
Don't
No,
believe
no,
me.
they don't.
Just research it yourself. If you can. Let's have a chat about it. Come on, there's nothing to.
Very valid question.
You're not for real, are you? Really? Seriously?
Yeah,
So does that mean the
for real.
moon's
I used to
flat as well?
believe in the
that mean
moon
the
landings and all those sorts of things. Before we jump to what other things are that I can't prove, let's stick with water. I can prove to you that water will find its level when it rests and must be contained. That's the natural physics of water. So the idea that it's on a ball is given to us by gravity. And gravity is a theory that says because things are falling to the floor, ergo a globe, that doesn't prove the globe. It just proves that things that are more dense will fall, things that are less dense will float, like a helium balloon.
So what shape is the Earth, according to you?
Well, I don't have a shape in my mind. I know that we have topography. If I travelled across from east to the west of England...
So if it's not a globe...
Hold on, let me make my point. If I travel from east to the west of
Well, let
England...
me make mine. If it's not a globe,
I haven't
what
made
shape is it?
my point. Well, I'm not claiming a shape. I'm not
So you
claiming a
don't,
shape.
it's not a globe, but you've no idea what shape it is. Is what you're telling me.
Well, I can tell you that water is level. So if I were to give you a model of the Earth, just like they did with the azimuth or equidistant, I can give you a model of
If
the
you think
Earth
it's flat,
and
it's a
sail
very,
around it.
very thin rectangle then.
Everything, I mean, the water is level. That's why we say sea level, right? And horizontal being horizon. Everything is
But when
level
you
to
look
the
at
horizon.
You can't see anything over it because of the curvature of the Earth.
Or is it because of perspective?
Because
You're
of
old
the
enough to
curvature
know
of the
that
Earth.
if you were standing on the beach and your son was standing on a 10-story building, he would see further than you, yes?
Yeah, because he can see further around the...
Can he see further? Well, you're assuming the curve, but I'm saying that you can see further because of perspective. That the higher you go, the further you see. So when I fly over the Mediterranean Sea, I see
That's
ships...
not necessarily true, because if I was stood on something that was dead flat,
Yeah.
and Mount Everest was 50,000 miles away,
You wouldn't
I
see
would
it.
see it.
No,
I
you
would
wouldn't.
still see it. Why
No,
wouldn't I?
no, because
I can't
everything-
see it now because it's curved. and
It's
it's
the
on the other
inverse
side of
square
the
law,
world.
right? The inverse square law halves the size of something when you double the distance away
I
from
can
it.
see the sun. How many miles away is that?
You're not wanting to hear what I'm
That's a
telling you.
straight line.
That a
here to the sun.
train coming towards you at the station, at the platform, you know that is a flat track for a mile or two, and the train is getting larger as it gets toward you. Yes.
But it's not a flat track. If
Is
it
the
kept
train
going,
getting?
if it kept going,
Is the
it's
train
not
getting
flat.
larger?
If it kept going on a flat
Answer my
track, I
question,
could still
please.
see it, couldn't I?
Is the train getting larger?
No. If it was a massive train the size
Yeah.
of the sun, and it was on a dead flat track, I could see it, couldn't I? Any distance.
Well,
any
how big
distance.
is the sun?
I could see it at any
How big is
distance.
the sun?
I don't know.
So we don't know how big it is, but we can agree that what we see in the
I
sky
think
is
you're
a
arguing
round.
for the sake of arguing, really.
No, I'm not.
It feels like it.
I mean,
You
obviously.
won't convince me that.
No, I don't want to convince
the
you,
Earth
but
isn't-
I can
I can see
perhaps
you trying to come up with clever
plant a
reasoning to say why it isn't necessarily
But we
as we expect
can you
it to be.
accept? Can you accept that with perspective, that when the thing goes further away, it looks
Yes,
smaller?
but what
yeah?
I'm saying is if it's big enough, we would see it at whatever distance it was away.
I don't No, I don't agree that that's true. I mean, we know
is
that
true.
when we fly, for
So
example.
if an ant is over there, in a straight line from me, I can't see it. But if it was 20 feet tall, I could see it.
Yes, but if you.
So
if
that
you,
works for
yes.
whatever distance I'm talking about. So you're saying you can't see the train when it's a mile away, but if that train was big enough, I could see it.
Yeah, but then if you took it further away, the same would apply. It would again eventually be too
The
far
reason
away.
you can't see it, Mount Everest is big enough to see with the naked eye, but I can't see it because it's on the other side of the...
No, well,
the
okay,
globe.
so what we've done is, the ship that's gone away over the horizon, which is what we were all taught,
Yeah.
that's proof of the globe, is that we take a powerful telescope or camera, and the ship that's already gone away, we can zoom back in on that ship. We can zoom in
Not
on...
if it's
on
gone over the horizon, you can't
well,
see it.
that's why it's not a horizon that can go over. And by the way, the horizon is only an apparent horizon. That horizon distance will be different on clear days and murky days.
Yeah.
So we know
Obviously,
that...
the taller you are, the more...
And the taller,
further you
yeah. Well, now you are making my own point, which is
Yeah,
that
but that's-
perspective will have a bearing on that. And so if you go right to the bottom of the image, which is standing on the beach, then you will lose things from the bottom up. But if you went much higher, you wouldn't notice that bottom up disappearing.
You're saying the globe, the Earth is not a globe, and you can't tell me what shape it is, then that's not a great...
Do you need a replacement model?
Well, I'm happy with the globe.
Well,
actually. I
the
don't
thing
need
is,
a replacement now.
Yeah,
I'm
I mean,
happy
well,
with
it's
the
like
globe.
the Jesus walked on water thing. Is that
I
if
don't
you
believe
can't? Well, I know, but some people believe that stuff too.
Yeah, well, that's up to them.
And yeah, but you can't convince them otherwise, and you're in the same boat. I can't convince you otherwise.
What point do you get to the end? Do we
Well,
just
if
There
we-
fall
isn't an
off?
end because he doesn't know what
That's
shape
what I
it is.
mean.
It could be a
Well-
Mobius strip,
What
so you
about
can
the
just
poor
keep
little-
walking and you just keep going round and
Poor
round and
little
round. and you
Well,
know.
maybe
They're just gonna drop off.
but it's kind
Yeah.
of like a Mobius strip in that we think that it's an electromagnetic torus, which is like that. It is like a never-ending spiral that
Do you know what
goes into
actually, a
itself.
Mobius strip, do you know what happens if you get a pair of scissors and you cut down the middle of a Mobius strip
Yeah.
and keep going? Do
Yeah.
you know what you end up with?
Like another one.
No, you end up with two circles.
That's right. My son has done
weird.
this for me. Yeah,
It's really clever.
he's 8 years old, and he showed me that. But he also
Anyway.
understands water being level, and that's what
Yeah.
we had. If I had to model a miniature Earth, I would do that in a swimming pool or a lake,
Yeah.
and I'd put 5 large boulders in, and they would mimic my continents. I would put a magnet that my ship's compass would read as the north, and I could sail around
But if
that as
you-
they did in the past.
Yeah, okay.
So-
Listen, we could argue all day, but
Well,
I
it's not an argument. I
think
mean, obviously,
it's an interesting concept.
I know when you're in a belief, you've got to dig in, you know. And we were all given that belief. I was 47 before I realized that I'd been lied, and the curvature formula, which none of us are taught, when you apply it to your real world experience, you'll realize that you have seen things way further than the curvature formula
But you
demands.
can see the curvature of the Earth from not even space. You don't have to go out into space. You can see it from certain aircraft, can't you, if you get high enough?
Yeah, I mean, back in the late 1800s, a guy called George Picard, a Frenchman, he took a gondola up to 10 miles, and at that time, in the late 1800s, no one had been that high. And when he came down, his newspaper report claims that he saw the Earth as flat with upturned edges. Now, Neil deGrasse Tyson is on record saying that the Red Bull jump wasn't high enough to see curvature, and that was at 120 or 200,000 feet, something like that. He claims that because footage has emerged of him jumping out of the cupola, and you see the flat horizon all the way from his height up there. So no, when we've taken, flat earthers have taken weather balloons and flown cameras up to 120,000 feet, that footage is available for anyone to watch on YouTube. And what you see there is flat, unless you're using a wide-angled fisheye GoPro type lens that makes everything look round even when you're taking off from the ground. So no, actually this idea that we're seeing, and there's plenty of pilots, by the way, that are videos on YouTube of pilots saying, no, there's no curvature. We don't allow for any curvature. We fly flat and level throughout the entirety of the flight with our nose 2 degrees up.
You have a well-rehearsed pattern that
well, it's 10 years.
Obviously works for what you're trying to sell, but it's not convincing.
I'm not selling anything.
It's not convincing me.
I'm just trying to free you from
it's not
enslavement.
convincing me. So.
No. But have a nice day.
You too.
But water will always find level, other than in the religion called heliocentrism. Have a good day. All the best. It's raining again.
You are bound to keep you safe. Your hopes.
Is there any of these images here that you disagree with?
I think the whole concept of the flat Earth is just crazy.
Okay, but the images here, are there any images here that don't match with reality?
I'm not going to take one image and try to debate you on why it is or isn't true. Right.
See what we have in our deep oceans. We have things called abyssal plains. And an abyssal plain, this is according to AI, is a vast flat. Well, I know, but AI is taking basically the information that's available to people.
The scientific method, right? The scientific method says you have a theory. Yeah. Let's go and do some tests.
Mm-hmm.
Let's go and prove our theory.
Yeah.
Okay. If our theory doesn't match what we observe, and we have to implicitly agree that what we're observing is the truth, then we change and modify our theory. So, millennia ago, people didn't know if the Earth was flat or if it was a sphere.
Because obviously it looks flat. They wouldn't have thought about sphere.
Yeah, I totally
no one who's
agree.
never had an education would say that Earth is a ball.
Totally agree.
Yeah?
But then mathematics develops.
Yeah.
And we agree that 2 + 2 = 4, don't we?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we can agree on that?
Yes.
Right, okay, so we can agree that maths is really the fundamental language of everything that we see around us.
Well, it can be used as a way of understanding things, yes, but it doesn't. You can't say we live on a maths equation. You have to be able to test it, right?
But we can test it.
And so when it comes to the curvature,
but we can test it.
Yeah. So what's the formula for curvature?
There are many formulas.
None of us are taught that.
There are many formulas. I do know.
I'm giving you. So you're offering me maths, and I'm giving you a maths formula. This is Pythagorean that tells us how much curvature we should experience if we live on a globe with a 4,000-mile radius.
It isn't 4,000 miles.
What is it?
It's 6,000.
No, 6,000 kilometers radius.
Okay. But
3,959.
Look, full disclosure, right, I have a physics degree. Okay, and I work as an engineer. Now my point is that there are theories, right? So your theory, okay, is the Earth is flat.
No. The evidence is that the Earth is flat. The theory is that it's a globe, and it's that theory that I'm challenging.
What do you propose it is then?
Well, I'm proposing, as if you're an engineer, you understand that we use water to level and can build with. Yes. Would you agree with me?
No. What I want to know is what you think the Earth is, because you're telling me it's not a globe. You therefore disagree it's a globe.
Yeah.
Tell me what you say it is.
Yeah. I would offer you that it's an electromagnetic torus.
It's an electromagnetic torus. Okay.
And that's a long way from the globe.
So a torus is a donut shape.
Yes.
Right. I understand. Let's put aside the electromagnetic stuff because that means nothing really.
Why? In quantum physics, the electromagnetics is orders of magnitude stronger than gravity. Orders of magnitude.
It's orders of magnitude on a certain
So
scale.
it's-
It's orders
that's
of
the
magnitude.
fundamental scale
It's
of
orders of
universe.
magnitude on a certain scale. On things that are atomic size, it's orders of magnitude stronger than gravity. But this is much bigger than those scales, and therefore gravity dominates.
But gravity is still a theory that needs testing.
It's a theory, absolutely.
As
like,
you said,
hang on, it's
and
a
if the theory
theory,
doesn't
just
fit-
like it's a theory,
Yeah.
just like everything else is. But it has many, 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 many decades of proof around it, suggesting that it's the closest thing we have to understanding.
So the laws
Would you
of
agree with that?
No, the
You wouldn't?
laws of no, because the laws of thermodynamics.
You're just
are,
bouncing from one.
No. You're saying
bouncing
theories are everything is theory. No, it's not. Laws of
No,
the
no, it
laws
is.
of
It is.
nature.
Absolutely
are,
everything we have about-
entropy is a law of nature. It's not a theory.
No, it isn't.
It is a law.
Absolutely everything that we have, is a theory.
Okay, so
Hang on. Let's not just keep bouncing around. Everything that we have here
Yeah.
is a theory.
Yeah.
Everything.
no, I disagree. But carry on.
Everything that we have is a theory, right? But what we have for some theories is a massive evidence
Yes.
that suggests
Yes.
that what we observe, this
Yeah.
theory explains. Okay?
Yeah.
So something could come along tomorrow and it absolutely could blow what we have out the water.
Well, it's come along
That's-
today, my man, and it's to say that the water is the proof that we're not on a globe. Because when we take lasers and measure water over long
What
distances
does that mean? Take lasers and measure water.
to see whether it's curving. You see, the surface of water, and now you're into physics, so the surface of water has to be curving at a certain amount if we live on a sphere. It always is curving because it's center mass, right? We're being attracted to the center mass. So everything's up is perpendicular to the center of the Earth, according to the theory, which means that the water is
Can I ask,
curving.
am I being recorded
Yeah.
here?
The water
because
is
I would have
being-
liked you to disclose that that was the case.
So this
really.
big bushy thing that I'm holding in my hand doesn't
Right.
make you think that I'm
Right.
filming? But I am filming, and so I go around, to cities talking to people about this. But the curvature, my man, is what's woke me up to realize. I was 47 before I stopped believing that this gravity thing is bending water. But actually, we can make observations. I've got this here. The Guinness World Record. Longest line of sight photograph is 440 kilometers. There should be more than a mile of curvature, according to Pythagoras.
I got to be honest.
It's not there.
It's just nonsense. How do you explain? How do you explain?
You're not dealing with the water. You're not wanting to face that water.
I
is
don't know what
level.
your argument is about
I'm saying
water,
that
but
water
I'm not-
never curves, so we have one sea level on Earth. All height above sea level is given from the mean sea level. There is only one sea level because
Right.
there is only one sea level on Earth. Everything is on level. If I'd made the Earth into a small swimming
sea
pool,
level is an
side
arbitrary
example.
level that we assume as to be sea level that carries on around the planet, and it gives us a way of datuming radially outwards from the Earth.
That's the suggestion, yes. But what we're saying is that no, what if the water is all level? That if I took a lake and I put big boulders in it, I could recreate the Earth on a flat lake with a border around it.
You
easily,
haven't,
but you can't make the
you
globe.
haven't provided one verifiable assertion from a flat Earth
Water
perspective.
being level.
How,
Water level
how do
and
you
sea
explain?
level.
How do you explain day and night?
See, but no,
How
hold
do
on.
you explain
But
day
I can
and
get
night?
I can get to
How-
that. But that's sort of next level stuff. But you see this?
No, thank you, chap.
All right, my friend. Well, all the best.
They've got to believe in things. If you believe a thing, you don't know a thing. So,
But when you've been like brought up to like think the world is round, what's the argument? What's the why you think Earth is flat? Why?
Well, it's,
What makes it better if the Earth is flat? That's what I'm trying to say.
It's meant to be flat. It does.
Can I offer an answer?
Yeah.
What if the Earth is flat and then they invented the globe to control us? That's the purpose of the globe, in my view, is to control mankind. In the same way that religion was designed to control mankind, they came up with this idea of trapping us on a globe because we suggest that there could be more continents that have never been shown to us. We suggest that it suggests that if this Earth is flat, then it was created, not a big bang, random, whatever.
What are you trying to do to like be free? Well, what's the purpose of this? Like, why argue against what's normal?
The normal?
Yeah.
Well, what if the normal was to kind of bring people into the town centre and behead them? Or the normal was to force women to do a particular thing that we would find repulsive? Wouldn't you want to stand up and say, hey, that's wrong? children, for example, in 2020 or 2021, were forced to take an experimental product, which now they've admitted in America they've pulled it from children taking the vaccine, right? The COVID vaccine. So they've admitted it's causing harm. So wouldn't you be, if you knew that in advance, would you be much of a man if you just stayed at home and said nothing about it? Or if you went out and say, listen, friends, neighbors, townsfolk, listen to me. There's a man in town who's come here with poison. He's told you that you really need this and you believe him, but he's lying to you. And this whole mind, this globe, and we're going to Mars and all of this stuff is a mind poison that's designed to control us. I mean, you could say, oh, they're robbing us of tax money and keeping us as slaves through the birth certificate and all this kind of stuff. But it's actually far more spiritual, that we are meant to be the masters of this place, and we are currently, religion had us servants, the kings had us servants, and now this idea that we are servitude to NASA and to Elon Musk maybe to save us from an incoming asteroid and all of this sort of stuff, or climate change. They couldn't pull climate change hoax on a flat Earth. It's not possible. This Earth is self-healing. It's like a living body that can clean itself up. We can't really ruin it. It's designed like a terrarium. Like if you had little tortoises or turtles in a terrarium, you know that they can go ahead and do whatever the hell they like. You'll just go in the next week and clean it up and they'll start again, and you put fresh water in. And that's what this place is.
Well,
it's
what
like
I'm
a
trying to say
terrarium.
is like, what makes you, why stand out? Well, what's the whole purpose of this?
Evil prospers when good men do nothing. And evil is running this world. Evil runs this world, unfortunately. And I'm a guy who went to war for my country, literally on the front line for my country. So I know how evil can get us to do things that are wrong, and why doctors did things in 2020, 2021 that are wrong. But they believed the lie, and they brought other people to conflict or to harm because of believing the lie. So the globe is a big part of the deception against mankind, against who we truly are and whatever God is. No religion here, but whatever God is, it's being insulted or attacked through these means. And they do it through our food, through our TV, through the air. Do you know what chemtrails are? Yeah. They do it in every which way. We are being targeted to be broken down. Fluoride in the toothpaste, in the water.
So what kind of things are you doing to not be a slave? I know, like, because you're coming at me with these things to be a slave. What kind of things are you doing to not be a slave?
Well,
like, what is this?
It's a great question.
I mean, we're all limited. There is levels.
What are you trying to do to not be a slave?
Within this system that we're all in, we are limited to a degree.
Yeah.
But just being able to have a voice, which they're trying to take away,
Okay.
is sometimes enough. Just to have these conversations, then for you to take that away and share that energy of thinking, let's question the whole narrative of where they're coming from. Sometimes it's just enough, that we're actually opening that door up to other people.
Now, some of it
share
is,
that.
it feels to me like we saw in 2020, even though I was going around and saying people don't follow the advice, listen to your body. I was going around, I knew that I wasn't going to be able to stop the behemoth, keep going down its track. That was going to be impossible. But, so we may not be able to necessarily change the whole world, but we can certainly make changes in our own perspective of who we are, you know what I mean? We've been put into, like I say to people, we've been put into a cage, like 10 puppies in a cage, and they've starved us, they've beaten us, burned us, and all sorts of things that have been done to you. So now you know that, and you know that was done to you. How are you going to address your own inner traumas so that you can find your own highest path, become your own master, the captain of your own ship? But if I've been telling you what to do, when you can eat, punishing you whenever you bark too much or whatever, then you are not your own master. But once I say, hey, listen, you've been put in a cage, I'm going to show you the door. Now, when you walk out of that door, you're going to have to find food for yourself. You're going to have to learn how not to bite your neighbor or bite your brother or whatever. You're going to have to learn all of this stuff for yourself and become your own master. No religion, no one else telling you, only you putting your head down at the end of the night, knowing that this is the temple of God. Then I should care for that temple, because the brighter my light becomes, the better I am to my family, to my neighborhood, to
So
whatever.
would you believe like after death and stuff? Like, would you
Yeah,
believe,
so-
is it like, do you believe we should have a relationship with God? Do you believe what's the purpose of all of us together? What's the purpose of us being alive now?
You've heard of the pineal gland? The center of the brain. Like this is meant to be your kind of conduit to God or to source, whatever that is. Yeah. So we are in constant communication with God. We may shun that. We may not want to hear that. They may use fluoride to kind of, reduce that contact. I don't know. But you're meant to have a relationship with yourself and therefore through that with God. And when we leave here, we go back to the divinity that we come from. I know that for sure. I had a DMT experience 10 years ago, ayahuasca. And it was like a near death for me. And for 7 minutes, I was on the other side. And I was an atheist. 7 minutes later, I was like, it's true, there's a God. So we never die. This avatar that you're inhabiting right now is like a blink of the eye for your eternal self. This is like a day at Disneyland for your eternal self. But we turn it into, because of the world we're in, we turn it into something extremely difficult. And the heaven and hell thing ends up being how you are in your lifetime now. The heaven or hell that you endure with your family, with your work, life, whatever, is all centered on you in this lifetime. When you leave this lifetime, whatever the hell or heaven you've been living through is.
Talking about Jesus.
Why is
Talking
it?
about
No.
Jesus.
He's rubbing it out because
you're giving
it
up
offends him.
leaflets. You're giving up leaflets about Jesus. Thank
See,
you
for me,
your
I don't
help.
get offended by
Thank you
this.
for
I'm
your
interested, but I'm not trying to argue against anything. I'm just trying to think, if we're in this earth, because my dad committed suicide, and I feel like I'm not sure where he's gone, if he's gone to heaven or hell and this and that. Because I'm like, because they say suicide is a sin. I'm thinking.
I disagree with that.
But honestly. I'm just, I'm saying.
I want it for your own peace of mind, because I gained so much. I mean, my dying mother couldn't get me to accept that there was a God. 4 years later, I do the DMT, and as I say, it's like I saw it.
Your mom didn't.
When my mother was dying in 2011, I was like, "There's no God. You're not going anywhere." It's, you know what I mean? It was like I didn't believe any of that stuff. Now, when I had the DMT, it was my mother's voice that calmed me down when I first went in. It was like, that's my mom talking to me. So I believe that whatever spirit your dad is still waiting for you when you get back on the other side. And I believe that people would do less suicide if they understood who they truly were. If you realize the beauty and the divinity of your essence, but also that there's a game designed to fuck you up, to try to poison you, to shorten your food access,
whole system is designed
like a dog.
Completely.
That's
all
why.
of this is designed to keep us divided, externally and internally. Not just keep me and you divided, but to keep us internally divided from who we truly are. It's all designed in that way.
So how do we get reunited together? Like, what makes us gel together? Because obviously that guy was offended and trying to rub that off. But I'm kind of thinking, okay, what's your purpose? What's your purpose to this message? What is it feeding me?
I like
what
that
am I going to
question.
go home? What am I going to? If I leave here, what am I taking away from this? Do you know what I mean? What are we trying to?
That you are the center of the universe.
Okay.
That you are the center of the universe.
Yeah.
And it's your universe. We're visiting each other's universes right now, but it's your universe. It's your world. You are the master of the world.
Okay.
And everything centers itself on you. And everything is designed for you to have an expansive, growing, magnificent experience. But the jailer doesn't want that, or he's jailed you as a test to go, what if I mess you up? Can you come out the other side? And if you do, then you're healing for your father line. You're healing for your whole energetic line. Because I believe like the ether that we're in, or the thing that we go to after this life is like the iCloud or something. It's like a cloud. Everything is in there. Everything your dad ever did, everything you've ever done is in there, and you go back to be with that. But the ayahuasca is if you research what people who have had near-death experiences in ayahuasca, they all say a similar thing, which is that I've gone back and I've found this loving thing. And I do not believe, because I did a lot of party drugs in my youth, and it was mushrooms, acid and all those things. And they did not prepare me for what I saw on the DMT. It was like, I'm super alert, but I'm on the other side of the veil.
Okay.
Like, it's ripped back, and I can see that we are something magnificent. We never die, bro. We never die. And nothing here can harm you. So even though your dad took those actions, nothing here can harm him, and he's not in, like the religions will tell you, that's sinning and all that.
What war did you go to?
Angola.
Angola war. Okay.
I wrote a book about it. We were in these big
from
tank
South
battles.
Africa?
I'm from England, but I was raised there, so
Okay.
I had all the propaganda of the South African coming up.
And
So
what was the war in Angola?
it was well, when the Portuguese left Angola in the 1960s, they left behind a power vacuum, and so there were three parties that was sort of fighting each other for power, and eventually that became two parties, UNITA and FAPLA. And FAPLA was like the government-backed, Russian-backed, Cuban-backed element, and then UNITA was the sort of rebels or the terrorists that were in the south of Angola, supported by America and South Africa. And so we had to do 2 years national service in South Africa, and in that time in 1987 there was a big offensive, like a lot of tanks came down.
So who was you fighting against?
Angolans.
Angolans. I just say
The Cubans were mostly flying the MiGs, and the Russians were in command.
Okay.
The general in the battle was a Russian.
Yeah.
And so just like with Ukraine, they have special ops guys from these countries assisting, maybe helping them with anti-aircraft stuff or things like that. So that was my war. I wrote a book about it called Battle on the Lomba. We were involved in the biggest tank battle since World War II in Africa.
Wow.
And it was what began waking me up, because when I wrote my book, a guy came to me and said, your battles were being choreographed. I'm like, no, that's not. Don't say that, But when I thought about it, and then at the same time, a barber that I was seeing, he was Kurdish. And I said to him, what's this ISIS? He says to me, ISIS? That's Americans, ISIS. They find it. I was like, no, I was angry with him, man. I wasn't ready to hear that stuff.
So what makes us divided? So the war in Ukraine and Russia, why are they fighting each other? Why is there Israel and Palestine? Because I'm thinking, if you're trying to reunite everyone, put everyone together, why is there these wars going on?
Divide and conquer. Divide and conquer. And if I can get you to hate me, or you to hate your neighbor or whatever, then I can control both of you, and I can sell you both security equipment so that you can defend yourselves against each other. So it's a great scheme. And if the Earth is flat and space travel has all been faked, it's been faked by the Russians, the Chinese, the Americans, the Indians eventually come into the club, and the British, of course. That at the very top table, they know they're faking it.
Well, why would they fake it? Well, what's the purpose?
Well, to create this idea that we are on this globe is true. The globe was designed as a mind prison. Yeah. And no one, even if you go back to textbooks from and encyclopedias and so on, for the early 1900s, there was still no one was certain that it was a globe. No one could be certain until we actually went there for the moon landings. That's the first time mankind could say that. But I've seen an interview with a top scientist in America from the 1950s saying they'll never land on the moon because the moon's not solid, it's plasma. And this is what science believed back in the 1950s. I've seen an interview with a lady who was 100, and she said they taught us flat Earth in school, So this whole idea that we live on a globe has been reinforced to give us this idea that we evolved from monkeys, because you need the evolution story for the globe, and we're in a very violent and scary place, rather than you're in a protective home that your creator, yourself maybe even created for you to be in, not this frightening thing. And then one other sort of element of it is that I think that it's about this journey of your life is a journey within. It's a journey inside, But flying to Mars and the moon is a journey outside, and believing that the salvation is to go to Mars. So there's lots of people who think that we're going to ruin the planet and we have to go to Mars. Well, that's the same as saying Jesus is going to come and save you, and we need someone outside of ourselves at some time, or second coming, or whatever. We need that to save us. When no, you have everything you need. You have the medicine you need to save yourself, and then help heal the family line.
But what we're saving us from? What's our purpose on this earth, and what we're running from, and what we're trying to get saved from? Because I feel like.
Good question.
Yeah,
great question. But there's two answers to that. One is that there is no purpose, and all you have to do is sort of experience something that your higher self can't experience, because we can touch, taste, and smell here, which your higher self in that realm can't do. So you can act independently here when perhaps you can't do that. So maybe your higher self was like, I'm going to come down here in this iteration, and I'm going to act and do whatever I want. That's the one answer. The other answer is that because they're lying so much about everything, there's a reason behind that lie, and that lie has to be to deceive you for some important reason, not simply to take your tax money, but it's for some important reason. For me, it's a spiritual reason. So I offer that perhaps we're here on a spiritual journey. If we make the progress that we intended to make in this journey, we migrate to the next level, or perhaps we recycle back in at this level in order to try it again. So I think that there's a soul reason or a spirit reason for us to kind of want to seek to be higher, not because the preacher told me to do so, but because I told me I want to be my higher self.
I used to go to church, and they used to, like, we used to go around and saying Jesus Christ saves you, all of this, and then I'm thinking, like, are we getting saved from sin? Are we getting saved from this? Well, what are we getting saved from? And then it's like, now I'm hearing you talking, and it gives me, it's opening my brain a bit, like, if you're thinking that we're here to experience life. Doesn't matter good or bad. We're just here to experience life in a way. And I'm just thinking, so these religions and stuff, like so Christianity, Islam, Judaism, what's the purpose of them? Are they? Is that to control us? Is that to make us better people? Because there's obviously religion's in a way like it makes you a better person. So what's the why is there rules where like someone kills someone, goes to prison? Why do they have to? So like, let's say someone kills someone and they goes to prison and they're trapped. Why is that happening? And someone that's outside living, let's say, whatever life can do what they just live by the rules and live normal. Like, how is that? Why is there such like?
Well, our actions, but our actions have consequences. You know, if you threw yourself down on the floor repeatedly, you'd start getting knees bleeding and bruise this and bruise that. You'd be like, damn, maybe I shouldn't do that to myself no more, you know? So it is about experiencing things. Like I said to my younger children who are now in their 20s, like, you know, obviously alcohol can cause you to become unwell. You're going to want to try it and what have you, but you're going to have to learn for yourself, like, well, how much is enough, you know? And do I want to get drunk tomorrow morning? And eventually you kind of get to a point, hopefully, where you go, no, actually, I don't really want to do that to myself. I don't want to end up doing time, actually. You know, and not, I mean, time for you know, smoking a bit of weed or whatever, that's of course shows you how obviously corrupt the system is. But time for maybe harming someone else. Smoking a bit of weed, you know, from a youngster, I realized that, gosh, why have they, you know, penalized us for doing this, which is a natural product given to us by the Creator, and then I can get drunk on the weekend and no one's going to bat an eyelid, and that's poison. That's like deadly poison, that stuff that I'm taking, you know, diluted, yes, but still, you know. So we live in a messed up, upside down world. And so it's like you've been thrown into the sweet bowl, and it's like, are you going to lose yourself in the sweets, or are you going to find your own sort of way? And I think you're right, that religion in the main says do good to your brother, you know, but religion at the same time as saying do good showed us through the Crusades that they can do a lot of harm if other people do not follow their belief system. We see this even in Islam or whatever. You see people being extreme with each other because they do not follow my belief system. So that's not very loving and Christ-like in my view. So, but religion is like I say the Bible is like a guidebook, you know, same as when you learn to drive a car. You read the rules of the road and then you go and drive the car. You don't keep the book in front of you while you're driving. You're like, okay, I know how these things work, but with experience, I'm going to be even better at driving. So I've gotten the kind of basics of how to be. Where I think religion was always misplaced, was that it was seeking to be the arbiter of your goodness or not, when you are meant to be the arbiter of that. The responsibility is on you. If your mother never let you in the kitchen to cook a meal, you'd know nothing about feeding yourself, but pretty much, you know what I mean? So it's the same with this, is that with a guide, you know, if your dad never took the sort of guide wheels off your bicycle, you'd never have learned to balance without it, right? And you've got to be put through those kind of tests. And I think that my preferred answer is, I think this is a fire test. And it's like, are you strong enough? Are you going to come out sharp and steel, or is it going to melt you into a little blob and you're just going to become an NPC in the system? But I really think that there's a soul journey that we're on here, and we're meant to, at some stage. And it's not to say that, oh well, I'm here now, I'm at level 9 and you're at level 3 or whatever, and that's bad. It's like we have an infinity. We have like perhaps lifetimes, and it may not be that we reincarnate in the same way as some people say. It may be that you are the reincarnation of your father, and I am the reincarnation of my father. You know, we're just coming down the line as a reincarnation of that. But anyway, that's all hypothetical. I don't know the answers to those things, other than this is what I believe now, given my many years, 10 years of research, sort of saying after the ayahuasca, the DMT, I said, I'm 47 at the time, I said, up until this point in my life, I know nothing. I was a published author, had children through uni. I know nothing. I had to start again and research everything again, and also take on this idea that, wow, we are something much greater than just stardust, as the scientists will try and tell you.
Yeah.
I hope that's helpful.
Thank you, bro. That was
You're welcome.
deep conversation. You know what I mean?
Cool. What's your name?
Hector.
Hector. I'm Dave.
Dave. You've been filming or not?
Yeah. It's live on YouTube.
Oh wow. Okay. Damn. So we've been feeding lies all this time.
The whole game is a deception, and it's been created, the banking, the governments, it's always for hundreds of years, possibly thousands of years, been designed to control the people in newer ways or different ways. And what we see coming now in the world is an increase in digital surveillance. We're going to be closed down. They're talking about 15-minute cities, you know, the UN Agenda 2030, United Nations Agenda 2030. When you read through the small fine print on that, you realize that what they were looking to do, because they blame climate change, they're looking to lock us down increasingly such that they've started a trial in Oxford called the 15-minute city, where they've broken the city up into 6 zones, and you're not meant to leave your zone more than 100 times a year. This is Hunger Games coming our way. They're going to get us to hate our nature so much, like they did with 2020, that we will take implantable devices into our body. We will readily take that, believing that we need that in order to survive. And we think that there is this idea of integrating man and technology so that we become the cyborg of the future, you know? And that's all against a creator's intention. This is the darkness.
Is that the mark of the beast?
Mark of the beast, perhaps. Perhaps. The Neuralink, some people say, the Neuralink that Musk is rolling out.
So what would that do if we're trying to live life? If we get implanted with the mark of the beast or whatever that is, the cyborg thing, how is that going to benefit us, or how's that going to...
Well, I mean, it's biblical, isn't it, to say that people won't be able to buy anything unless they're carrying the mark or using the mark of the beast. So we're hoping that if we continue this journey, that for some people there will be an alternate reality, what they call, I think it's biblical as well, they call it the bifurcation, where mankind splits into 2 segments, those that are more natural and those that are taking on the technocracy completely. And so perhaps if you live in a bubble, like a city like this, you will have to be, the only way to access this place will be with the mark of the beast. So we're hoping that we can do something different. You know, have you ever seen the movie trilogy Divergent, Insurgent, and there was a third one? No. Should try and catch up with that movie, because it's a very interesting sort of portrayal of a future that might be very realistic in the time of your children's life, certainly.
Okay. And this is deep.
It's deep. But you know, you've got an open mind, Hector. So just you know, just like. I think some of this conspiracy stuff can end up being like a lot of noise.
What should I take away from this conversation? What should I research? What should do my homework on?
I've got a friend of mine has a website, like an app that has really, really good content that he's curated, put it all together, so it's very easy for people to access. Do you have a Dave Weiss app thing? But I mean, my most important takeaway for you, Hector, is that you are, each of us, but are like, we should be the kings and queens. We are majestic, but we've been brought low by misinformation, by control over centuries. And we live in the information age, and we think that it's time for people to see the truth about who we really are.
I've got one on me.
Well, you can go on I'll give you you can have my website is on there. I do need to update it and give you put more information on there.
Oh, here we go.
Oh, you got one. Awesome. This app is worth the £3.
It's one payment. It's not a monthly subscription. It's one payment.
£2.99 or whatever. But
what is it?
Loads of information on there.
It's called Flat Earth, Sun and Moon
Zodiac
clock app.
Okay.
There's a little QR code there. And you can get a lot of that information, but that's a lot to do with the material world. Like, the truth is that this world isn't actually material. It's all electromagnetic. It's all vibration. Everything, like Nikola Tesla said, it's all vibration. And we are vibrations within a vibration. And your good vibration is valuable to the system, but your good vibration is most valuable to yourself. And so if you can, with this knowledge, move into one, being a warrior, but with a high vibration, then you are going to be the best man and husband and father that you could possibly be. And that's, I think, it's not to put anyone on a pedestal, but it's to say, like, you have your own highest potential that you can achieve. I'm not the one to say that. You are the one to say that. But if I've been poisoning you, then you do not realize your true potential. And so you need to kind of unpick, release some of the poison of the mind, of the body. Look into things like we do, distilled water. We drink distilled water rather than tap or bottled water. Things you can do to clean your body.
You were saying earlier, what can we do? You can come away with, like, how you can take some responsibility within this structure, what we've been forced into, like using alternative ways of being healthy, like Dave was saying about distilled water. And so there are things.
So how do
that
we
you
increase
can
our
come away
good
with.
vibration? How do we increase our good vibration? Like, what's the low vibration? What's the high vibration?
Well, the eyes are the window to the soul, so be mindful about what you allow into your eyes. Like horror movies, porn, stuff like that. That's going to have an effect on you. Same, even with music that's screeching in your ear is going to cause you pain, right? This music we're listening to now, made by a friend of ours called Conspiracy Music Guru, is all tuned at 432 hertz rather than all of our music being at 440 hertz. So we know that the 440, if you look at cymatics, you see that it makes a disturbed pattern, whereas 432 makes a perfect geometric pattern.
It's much more natural coming into us, how we receive it.
So the music that you listen to, even that can, if you're head banging and think about the kind of energy that's versus like what we're playing right now.
This demonic energy with youngsters, with like there's all this going on, and it's all very dark. But it's everywhere. And so it's just being mindful of how you receive that, or whether you let it in.
And know that this is the temple of God. And so how you maintain this temple now will figure well, not only in the length of your life, but also in the way that you feel. I'm 10 years, 12 years maybe, since I last saw a doctor. Now I know that I can do things naturally. Find plants and stuff like that, or take herbal stuff that can, if I feel a little unwell, I can do that, right? So there's...
What kind of herbal plants? What do you mean? Like, what makes you feel good?
Well, I'm using some medicinal mushrooms at the moment, like jing, and I've got some, like staghorn, stuff like that, which is meant to be really good for you. Other mushrooms that my wife has got me going on, and then lots of herbs from the garden. And like at the moment, like we've just come out of dandelion season, but when the dandelions are up, those yellowheads, I'm popping a couple every day when I'm out walking. You can make tea with the roots if you're feeling unwell. And then, I've just been eating the horse parsley recently, because that's all the white flowers that are popping up, and they, just need a little bit of them. So the nature is giving us food all the time at different times of the year to stay well. Ginger, garlic, these things are well known. Turmeric, well known for like antibacterial. We use silver, water with silver in it. These sorts of things. Apple cider vinegar. There's lots of natural things we can do to maintain our body in a state of alkalinity, a state of good balance.
Damn.
It's a lot.
Follow my channel as well. My wife and I do like a Friday hangout. You can listen in, we try and drop information for people, that kind of thing.
Are you saying the Earth is flat?
The seas are level. We have one sea level.
Okay. So it's not a globe?
No.
So what about in space? Obviously people have to ask this all the time.
Yeah, space. Space breaks the second law of thermodynamics, which for us to be in a pressure system, we have to enclose it. So we believe that it's enclosed. That's why we have an atmosphere. If we had no enclosure and you had a vacuum next to it, instantly gone. If we opened a vacuum chamber or we did the inverse, instantly you would lose that pressure. It would equalize with the surrounding environment. So we're told when we're young that the pencil's fallen on the floor, that's gravity. Then a man 300, 400 years ago came up with the idea that the reason it's fallen to the floor is because everything's being attracted to the center of a ball, and now we believe that. And water and all of these things are now able to do that, even though in physics, water demands containment. If you disturb it, it's going to spill, but once it's at rest, it's going to be perfectly level over the surface. Anything bigger than its own surface area, it's going to find level, with a little bit of meniscus for surface tension on the walls of the glass or the walls of something.
But what's the one? So have you always thought this?
No, 10 years.
Okay.
10
So what's the one thing that convinced you? So
curvature.
My first
Formula.
question was about the outer space. They look down, they see a globe.
Yeah.
So you're saying they don't see a globe?
That can easily be faked. That
Oh,
could
so,
be.
okay. So lay that aside for
Yeah.
me. So you're saying that's faked?
So my first go-to, because I was into the moon landings, I believed all of it.
Yeah.
These as well.
These are the pictures that we get, and you see how the difference in America's size in these two different pictures. And when you look at the ones that NASA give us, and they claim they've only got one photograph, but all of these have different kind of size, continents, and so on. They're all artistic work. So your question is a good one. What stopped me in my tracks? I was 47 at the time, and I was faced with the formula curvature. It's a Pythagorean curvature formula that says that if you live on a sphere with a radius such, then for every mile squared, you will lose 8 inches for curvature. And because it's miles squared, by the time you get to 10 miles, you're talking about 800 inches of curvature, which people say, okay, that's fine. I see a ship go over the horizon at about that distance. But now we've got long-range cameras. We can see 10 miles, 20 miles, 30 miles. On my poster here, my banner, I've got the world record photograph, according to Guinness Book of Records, is 400 kilometers. And these are ranges that we can see that belie this imaginary curve. Because when you're young, you're told stand at the beach, you'll see the ship go away, which is true.
So sorry to interrupt. So, but you're saying that all the different countries, all the people that send things into space, they're all conspiring to tell a fib that the world is a globe, and you're saying it's not. So, but there again, what about satellites that go around the Earth?
Okay. So first part, yes. It's hard to accept, and it would only be a very, very small number of people in any of the governments that are involved in space travel. But when you get invited into space travel, that will mean that you have people high enough up the chain to keep that secret. Yes. So it's a good thing about that is that it means that the wars that they're creating between these countries are all staged. They're actually at the top table. They're working together. What was the second part of your
about
point?
Satellites going around
Satellite.
the Earth.
Okay,
Yeah.
So back in the 1950s, they started practicing with helium balloons that will be bigger than this cathedral by the time they get up to working altitude. And so we've seen them floating them above, out of Sweden. Sweden's very proud of its relationship with NASA. It floats satellites from up there, so they put them on the helium balloon, and it can sit in geosynchronous, what they call geosynchronous, for months in that place. It might have a little fan, which is solar powered, whatever, that can maybe move it around. But we've got video footage of them falling into jungles and so on with the balloon attached and the sort of little satellite array with a little solar panel, all still beeping, all still working. We've got footage of them launching them from different places in the world. NASA happens to be the largest user of helium in the world. It owns helium mines. It is by more than 90% of all helium goes to NASA in the world. So we believe they're using helium. You might have heard of Google Loon. Google Loon was a project some 10 years ago where they started floating. They admitted we're going to float over Africa. We're going to float balloons with satellite receivers and transmitters because of the problems of putting cabling in there and so on. Now Google Loon was shut down very quickly about 2 years ago, but I think that's when the Starlink took off, and they were just using helium balloons to float receiving devices. They're also using, I believe, aircraft as towers, basically. As the craft are flying by and your phone's nearby, it'll be able to reach that tower. But all of our phones are triangulating off ground tower, and the data industry admit that 99% of all data is undersea cabled.
So what about all the other planets? Are they flat as well?
I'll answer that question. So South Africa, for example, had super slow internet up until about 12, 15 years ago when cables finally were brought ashore in Cape Town. Why, if satellites are real, have they not got their own geosynchronous super high data stuff? No, everything is based on that. Now, the planets in the sky, the wandering stars as they used to be known, Venus, Mars, Mercury, Saturn, these, Neptune, are points of energy that we can mimic using cymatics. if you come across cymatics, it's where they take a sound plate and they put a speaker underneath it and they vibrate it at a certain frequency. And the salt granules will organize themselves into these geometric patterns which mimic the shapes we see in the churches and so on. But they mimic these patterns, and we can show you how that exact frequency will give you the same pattern if you look at Mars, or perhaps you're looking at a different star. So what we see when we look at them with powerful cameras is a point of light that is shimmering. Almost as though if you look at the swimming pool, at the bottom on a sunny day, if you look at the bottom of the swimming pool where the water's moving, you see all these patterns happening on the bottom of the swimming pool, dancing around. Well, we're seeing the same thing with the stars.
So the traditional view that the Earth is travelling around the sun, and it spins, to give us night and day. You don't agree with that?
No.
Okay.
So and
so
of
what
course,
about the end? If it's flat,
Okay.
a silly question, but what happens at the end?
Okay, no, that's fair enough, and I appreciate the tone of the question. So remember, up until 500 years ago, no one had even invented a globe. The oldest globe, according to the internet, is 500 years old. Yes, we've got the sticks and shadows from 2,000 years ago, Eratosthenes, but I could put two sticks in the ground and say, look, I've got different lengths. That proves that the Earth is flat and the sun is close. We can do that experiment and take it either way. With regards to and then if it is close, then it's a little bit like taking a stadium light at Wembley, but one light, and then just walking it around the stadium once every 24 hours. At one point is daylight, and the other part of the other stand is nighttime. So if we've got a local thing, we can have both seasons and night and day on a flat model when we think about it. So in terms of the edge, a guy called Admiral Richard Byrd, back in the 1940s and 50s, was given a fleet of ships, including an aircraft carrier, 5,000 men, and he was sent down to Antarctica and spent 10 or 12 years exploring. When he came back, and he said, I've traveled on land that no man has ever seen before. I've stood on land larger than America. And there are resources down there that would last mankind for lifetimes. This video, this recording of him saying this on American TV back in the day is still available on YouTube. So I've seen it a number of times myself. The very next year, the big countries of the world, these Russia, China, America, Sweden, and so on, they signed the Antarctic Treaty, which prevents you and me from traveling beyond the 60th south parallel, and no commercial stuff beyond the 70th south parallel. Everything after that is militarized. So we're suggesting that they've closed off a ring. If the sort of flat Earth, if you take the United Nations logo in your mind and put an ice ring around that, we're saying that's possibly what our Earth looks like, that it has to be enclosed by something that's frigid because the sun doesn't reach that. If you imagine I had a hot light in this cathedral area here, it would only warm up the area around it, but beyond it, it would be colder and colder the further you went away from it. So we're saying that possibly it's a circling system, an electromagnetic toroidal system, as Nicholas Tesla is said to have claimed, and that the hot area is around our sort of what we call the equator, the Middle East and all of that, and as you go away from that it gets colder and colder progressively until it's just permafrost. We see old maps from the 1600s and globes even. I've seen one in someone's home where the Australia didn't exist. It was covered with ice or covered up. On the converse of that, there are maps from 1500s that show continental areas in Antarctica that are mapped perfectly. And if that has always been under ice, how could they have mapped them perfectly according to geotech that they use, geophysics that they use today? So now what the world is something beyond our imagination. What I offer to people is that imagine the universe is a great big orange, just for a moment. We're not on the outside of the peel. Nothing grows on the outside of the skin. We're on the inside, at the center, at the core, where the seeds are of the orange. That's the plane that we're standing on, the plane of inertia, which is electromagnetic. The plane of inertia is where the seeds are in the orange. And the fruit is either the atmosphere around us or the sea beneath our feet. And then around us is a pith. And then beyond that is a peel. But we cannot get through the pith. Man has been trying. They did with Operation Fishbowl. The Americans and the Russians for 4 years in the 1950s smashed the biggest bombs they had up into the ceiling. And they said they were trying to charge the ionosphere or something. But when you see the footage of them, it looks like it's splashing against something. And we've even seen rockets in the modern times splashing against something.
So do you have a religious view that's at the base of your understanding?
None at all.
So there's no religion at all?
None at all.
So
Not for me. There are flat
so-
earthers today who
yeah.
would say it's because it's, the Bible is a flat earth book. So there are lots of people in the Christian faith who say, yes, it's flat.
Okay.
But for me, no. Religion is a form of control. What I was just saying to Hector is that we are, whatever Christ is within you. So whatever is beyond this material thing, you are directly connected to it in as much as the king or anybody else.
So there's a philosophy then that goes
Yes.
with what you're saying?
A little bit, yes.
Yeah.
I had like a
where does
near-death
that come
experience
from
which gave me.
originally? Where do these thoughts come from originally?
Well, I was just saying to Hector.
But is there someone that's taught you this?
No.
No.
This is all my own
Arguing
reckoning.
against it, or
No, I'm not arguing against it. I'm trying to find
Trying
out.
to understand.
Yeah,
No,
I don't understand it.
Well, so I was sharing.
That's the question. Why do you believe what you believe? Have you been taught something and shown
Well,
something you're
what's
repeating?
interesting is the word conspiracy theory. The CIA invented that to question, so we don't question stuff.
Well,
You know,
okay.
There's so many things against.
But I suppose I think
There's-
simply.
There's many websites that are looking into all of what we're talking about, and they get taken down all the time.
Yeah, but I suppose I
it's-
think Francis Chichester, an ordinary guy, he sailed around the world.
Yeah.
So
And
is
he
it
had his
to-
gypsy
why
mod in
do-
Greenwich, and I've been there, seen it.
Uh-huh.
So I think, well, if he
Why-
sailed
why
around
do
the
you-
world,
Yeah.
and
Why
you
does
see
it get
pictures
taken
from
away?
space,
What's the...
then you think,
Well,
you,
Have you got
fascinating.
this
These
one?
are all official
No, we've seen that one, but this
Okay.
one is more relevant. You see, we can sail around this, no problem. And if you,
so you're saying it's all flat though?
yeah, all's flat on the sea level. But actually, if you plot his route, if you know his route, and even with the Vendée and so on, if you
Yeah.
plot them, you'll see how they kind of go down to South
Yeah,
America,
sure.
then they'll touch Rio and
So it
so
could
on.
have been
They
flat.
might come in back here. Yeah, of course. And of course, we don't believe the story of Columbus, right? We feel like we knew the Americas hundreds and thousands of years ago. We got buildings in the Americas that look like Greco-Roman buildings from before Columbus's time. So I think that people have been sailing around this Earth, flat Earth, forever without it needing to be a globe.
So what made you begin to think that the Earth wasn't a globe, but it was flat? What was the first thing that
I was
made you
very
think
much
that?
buying the mainstream stuff. Then I wrote a book about being the Angolan War. I wrote the book about 14 years ago, and I came across information in that started getting me questioning things like 9/11, the Gulf of Tonkin, what happened, how did World War II, or how did America get into World War II with Pearl Harbor? If you look at the backstory of those, you go, is it possible that they knew that attack was coming and they allowed it? Because if it happened, it would get America into the war.
Sure.
And you look at who's behind controlling those sort of stories, you start to question things that you formerly believed to be true. And then I came across this formula for curvature, that if we live on a globe, the Earth must be bending and be spherical at all times. One might argue over land masses, it's either a mountain or it's flat or whatever. But over the water, when we zoom out, as you say, from space and we see the sort of blue marble, as they call it, it is almost a perfect sphere, oblate spheroid, some would say. But so that means that there is a measurable, and science requires measurement, there is a measurable curvature leaving one coastline and going to France. People say the ship is going down. Well, how much is it going down? And can you measure that going down? Or is it simply your eyes tricking you using perspective and angle of resolution to make you think that the ship has actually gone over, when in fact, the higher you go, the further you see the ship still on flat water. And sometimes you can see a ship beyond the one that you could see, and you thought, shit, I thought that one had already gone over the curve, and yet there's another one behind it. And that's so I came across this formula. Growing up by the sea, my dad is in shipping, and I saw this formula, which is 8 inches per mile squared. And that's mainstream. If you Google what is the formula for the curvature of Earth, it'll say 8 inches per mile squared from the point of the observer standing on the coast or on the beach at sea level. 3 miles away, you will lose the horizon, and that's what it says. And then I started testing that with, my experience of life of having been at the sea so much of the time and seen things 20 miles away and gone, well, hold on, if I could see that 20 miles away, that curvature that they claim, which is now up to about 30 or 40 feet, isn't there. I can see streetlights up 10, 20 miles up the coast. And those streetlights are from lamps that are only 30 feet high. How am I seeing something that's now meant to be 30 meters below the curvature?
So if the Earth, say the Earth is flat, and you're saying it's encased in ice.
Okay.
Is that what you're saying?
Well, I'm
So
theorizing
what's beyond
that.
the
I'm
ice?
theorizing. Well, we keep an open mind about that. So there is
why-
this same guy.
with respect, why don't you go and have a look? Why doesn't somebody go and have a look then?
We've tried. People
Yeah.
have tried. In fact, there's a Dutch sailor who took his boat out and was turned away by a military convoy. Turn around or we will sink your boat. And that video is available on YouTube. There's another guy from two or three guys from Australia tried to go as fast and far as they could, and an Australian gunboat turned up on their flank and said, "Turn around now," blah blah blah. So the Antarctic Treaty is a very real thing, and it's enforced by the navies of those countries that happen to be, like South Africa, that happen to be close enough to the exterior. No, we're not allowed out there. But Admiral Byrd, who I mentioned a minute ago, his son released his private diary a few years ago, and in it he claims he met people from another continent that we've never been introduced to, but at a higher level of consciousness or culture than we are. So there is one of the theories is that there are more continents, and they're held outside of the area that we call 70th South Parallel. And we're not allowed to go there. And then the militaries who are there doing British Antarctic Survey and so on, they've got a few thousand square miles to play in, but they also are not given license to just travel in as far as you can. So no, if I'm telling you don't go there, you're starting to think, maybe there is something there, you know. There's a claim that Adolf Hitler was absolutely fixated on Antarctica in the 1940s, late 30s, early 40s, and he had a base down there, and that they were doing stuff or interacting with. So we allow for there to be aliens or extraterrestrials, because extra terra meaning extra earth. Extraterrestrials could come from extra earth. So that's one of the theories, is that there is much more land at our disposal, but we're being kept in a cage. And when you live on a globe, you know that there's nowhere else to go. Whether you live on a plane, and humans being adventurous people that they are, would go, well, then let me see how far I can go. And Admiral Byrd, he would do this. He would fly fuel a few hundred miles in, and then he would bring more fuel and fly another few hundred miles in, and then bring more fuel. And he flew for a few thousand, I'm going to say, miles sort of in. But imagine, instead of imagining it like into this continent, he's flying into an element of the outside of your watch. He's flying into that kind of area rather than onto a recognized landmass. Captain Cook is said to have sailed around Antarctica, and it took him 3 years. And he said he sailed 60 or 70,000 miles. So that doesn't fit with the 12,000 mile continent that we're told that Antarctica is. So there's a lot of interesting, it may be that there's more resources, and maybe that there's more land. It may be that there's something that we would love to see. Whether humanity is ready to see it or not, maybe the people in charge go, well, we can't let them see that, so we're going to have to continue or perpetuate. And it was actually, if you think about the timeline, 1948 when they signed the Antarctic Treaty, and then in a few years or so, they're now coming up with this idea, we're going to fly to Mars, and we're going to go to outer space, and we're going to do all of these things, and NASA gets built out of Jack Parsons' laboratories. Now, Jack Parson was a student of Anton LaVey, who was the Church of Satan. He led the Church of Satan, Anton LaVey. But Jack Parson was good friends with Walt Disney. And the third part of that triad was L. Ron Hubbard. Now, L. Ron Hubbard developed Scientology, this idea that we come from space. Disney develops this idea that we can land on Pluto and all of these sorts of things. And then Jack Parsons goes on to do the rocketry. And of course, you may have heard of Operation Paperclip, where Nazis were brought from Germany to America and Russia under Operation Paperclip. And a lead rocket scientist called Werner von Braun, he then becomes the lead guy on the Apollo mission. And he writes on his tombstone only one thing, Psalms 19:1, which says that the firmament showeth God's handiwork, that there's a roof over us. That's what he put on his tombstone. But he also, funnily enough, he wrote a book in the 1950s about a guy called Elon taking mankind to Mars.
Oh, Elon.
He writes a book, a science fiction book about and they call themselves the Elons. The people who go to Mars are so fascinated by this guy. They call themselves the Elons, and they become the people to go to Mars. And so you know, the idea that Shakespeare said all the world's a stage. Was it Shakespeare or someone else?
Shakespeare.
All the world's a stage, and that's actually what's going on. It's what I was saying to this young man is that we are being punked by people who are running a game against us to see if you're smart enough to work it out. But for the majority of us, and I include myself in that, because I believed pretty much everything that came down there. Although I questioned JFK and so on, I pretty much believed everything the BBC told me. Now I realize that the BBC is just an extension of the military-industrial complex that rules the world. Hector, I'm Dave.
Dave, thank you, Dave.
It's been fun.
Well, Dave, you give me a lot to think about. Thanks for that.
My pleasure, and
You
really
take care.
appreciate your questions. Can I give you a flyer? Have you got one?
Yeah, sure, I'll take a flight. Yeah, thank you.
Cool.
All the best then. Thank
All
you.
the best.
Bye-bye.
Thank you very much. Well, that conversation made it worthwhile. Oh, some good combos.
Yeah.
How are we doing for time on the old?
I've just been and moved it, so
you did,
we're
right.
okay till the end of the day. Something like that. I'll talk around the houses. Come out the car park, I'll go down and down, and I'll hang out further than where I went in. So I think we just got the old station car park.
Oh, someone arrived out this, didn't they? That was a while ago. You can't get angry at the guy. Come back to the yellow. I think. How are you guys doing in the chat? I hope you enjoyed that. Rather fruitful conversation. Well, fruitful conversations have to be a catalyst for that, I think. Expecting a slightly busier day. I was hoping for a slightly busier day. Can I give you some information today?
No, we're not ridiculous people.
You're not ridiculous. I think you're projecting. You're ridiculed. Earth is flat, not a spinning ball. Teachers lying to you about gravity. It's all density and buoyancy. Displacement. Gravity is displacement in the medium. No 9 inches of rising or whatever per meter squared. How are you guys doing in the chat room? Dave.com, 33 in chat. Must be Illuminati. Thanks, yeah, I was going to roll there. I never started once. I think that those last two conversations, there were some. I could feel one or two things hitting home. My hair stood up on the back of my head. They're hearing this.
And then you came out and went to the care home.
Some information for you.
Thank you.
All right. That woman said, I'm not ridiculous. No, we're not ridiculous. I offered her something. We're not ridiculous. I assume she's come past here already. She was preloaded with that. A little bit of anger. Earth is flat, not a spinning ball in space. We've been lied to. Do you think we landed on the moon?
Well, that one I disagree. I agree. Yeah.
Yeah, we didn't land on the moon. The International Space Station is done in a swimming pool. It's all done in a swimming pool. You South African? He's got a South African flag on his hat. Hey man, some info. Earth is flat. No? I know. Earth is flat.
Good, thank you so
You're
much.
welcome.
Hey!
Hi.
Right, come on, babe. Knock you over.
I wonder when this was built and who built it. I do. Would you like some information? Welcome. Can I give you some information?
I'm alright, thank you.
Oh, I dropped the chalk.
I think it should, and that's what she said.
Mikey's got proof of the film. Yeah, I actually haven't seen that. It's going the building behind and then you see the buildings. Yes, and then you how is that? I can't agree with that. Headwords. Nice to see. Oh, that's it's all about liability, obligations, and due process, and who gives and enforces their authority. Not everyone has the same experience with DMT. I agree. There's a lot of difference. Hey guys.
How you doing?
All right. How are you?
Yeah, all is good.
You guys see a lot of. I hope you don't mind me asking you this. Do you see a lot more? I'm hearing doctors saying they're seeing a lot of pericarditis, myocarditis, that kind of thing. Do you see a lot of that nowadays more than before?
Don't really know how to answer that really.
That's not the easiest way, we're seeing a lot of stuff.
It's hard to know. Hey, I guess it's hard to know when you're listening.
We see a lot of stuff. Yeah.
Because doctors who are proper doctors and cardiologists and so on, they're saying that since 2021 they've seen a spike in a number of things to do with heart problems and cancers, like turbo cancers. A friend of mine or a relation of mine recently was diagnosed, and within 3 weeks they were gone. They're already stage 4 at arrival at the oncology, which makes no sense.
That's bad luck, isn't it? That is bad luck, mate.
Yeah. All right. I didn't want to push them too hard. They're not. I don't want to hear that they've been poisoning people.
Anti-vaxxer?
No, I'm not anti-vax, although I'm not sure that they're a good idea at all. Maybe some occasion when you might benefit from it. I think so. You want some information? Yeah, and it's all CGI. What NASA put out is all provably CGI. Even the rocket launches are basically like a physical rocket that goes up to about 30 miles and then starts to curve back down and drops into the sea at the Bermuda Triangle. Okay. So they're not putting things up into the vacuum of space.
So do you agree that Kubrick
filmed them? Very likely. Yeah. Very likely. That's my preferred.
You've seen which desert was it? I think it's.
I'm going to say, I'm not sure, but I think the Mars stuff they're faking in somewhere in Canada because people have found geographic similarities with the Mars stuff as being Canadian outback somewhere. Yeah. So it's all faked. And why would they fake it? Well, because they can't prove that we actually live on a spinning, wobbling ball in space.
You're not recording me, are you?
Well, I'm not filming you.
Okay.
But they can't prove that we live on a spinning, wobbling ball in space. And Einstein said himself, we've got no experiment that'll prove that Earth is spinning.
No.
Well, I asked ESA, European Space Agency, what's your proof that the Earth is spinning? They said the sun rising. Well, that could work on a flat Earth.
Okay. So you believe then that the Antarctic basically circles?
That's a very good theory, but it would only be a belief at this point. Yeah, I'm trying to avoid belief though. Belief is for religious people and heliocentrists.
You want facts?
Yeah, and there's some compelling stuff, but thermodynamics demands that if you want to be in a pressure system, you have to put a container around it. You want to contain gas, so we have to be inside of a container. And in nature, we always show that nature grows things inside of a container, like a peel, a bark, a shell, a skin. And so I think that we have to be inside of a skin. We can't be on the outside of the skin. It just destroys all physics and stuff. Water needs to be contained. It will not sit on the outside of a shape. You cannot spin that shape and expect the water not to be disturbed by that. Take my fly.
Let's hope one day we learn what it's all about.
Well, when individuals wake themselves up, yes. Yes.
Cheers.
Yes.
Little head shakers.
Nice.
The bald-headed guy reading, and he said the other guy, I work with somebody who thinks Earth's flat.
Excellent.
It's massively deep indoctrination, isn't it?
Yes.
Generational.
Yes,
you know?
yes.
So you can see.
And I mean, this stuff is all. Water is always going to find level. Water will always find level, but people want to deny that. They're living in denial, like a religion.
But like I was saying to that guy, if your parents have been told that lie,
Yeah.
their parents have been told that lie,
Yeah.
you're going to stay with your family's life.
Same religion.
You know,
Of course,
you're going to think,
of course, your parents'
I've got to defend my family here.
Yeah.
I've got to defend what I've been taught by my parents, not television. My family have been lied to. So instantly, people are going to be like,
Yeah.
I don't know you. How are you standing there telling me that nonsense? So yeah.
Lovely. Well,
roll up, roll up, roll up, roll up.
roll up, roll up. The world is a pie.
That looks nice.
Oh, I would have put in papers.
No, I didn't bring none myself. Yes, some information. We're going around telling people that water is always going to find level, space is fake, and that the governments are all working together to create never-ending war, control you, so you never realize that you are the divine spark of a creator, the Most High. No religion. I'm not into religion at all. I think religion is another form of control, another government of the mind. You are the master. There is no need for a religion. Everything that's good or bad is happening for you, in you.
Right.
If when they tell you that the ship is going away over the sea, trust me, you can take a laser or you can take a powerful camera and you can zoom back into that ship that you think went over the horizon. Sea is level, bro. We live inside of a container. There is no outer space that we can travel to. Everywhere that we can get to is inside of a bubble that we call, the universe. All the lights are inside. The sun is small. It's lighting up half of the earth at any given time. Like if I took a light around this town and I only lit up half the town at a time and moved around once a day, it'd be darkness there and light time there. So yeah, everything, the government, the BBC, it is all designed to control you. And your education, our education was designed to give us a religion, and we call it heliocentrism, belief that the sun is the most important thing. When that's not true. You are the most important thing at the center of the universe, and the sun and the moon are yours. They are designed. That's why when you stand at the beach at sunset, the light will come to your feet directly. But your mate who's 20 meters up the beach, he won't notice that. For him, the light will be coming to his feet directly. Same with the moon. Check out the moon on a full moon. It's coming up. When it's cloudy, the moon's going to give you a hot spot above this town. But someone in London would say, no, I can't see that hot spot, man. There's a hot spot over me, but not over you. It's dark where I look down your way towards this part of the country. So everything is at the individual level, and we are being misled. So I like to go and tell people that you are the king, you are the true inheritor of this place, and the religions and the governments are doing everything they can to poison you, poison your mind, your food, your water, the lot. Everything has been designed to nobble you, break up the traditional family, screw with what is to be a man, to be a woman, all of that kind of stuff. Because they're trying to mess with whatever creation is. We might be creation. We might be God. Whatever God is, we might be. I hope that's a lot of information very quickly, but I hope that's useful.
Yeah, thank you.
All the best.
It wasn't the best. They're not like they used to be.
They've gone downhill. Even like Wolfie's Margarita looks They used to be really nice and crispy on the sides and stuff. They weren't at all. Yeah.
Is this your son?
No, it's her son.
Have you heard of Vivo Barefoot?
No.
You should look into Vivo Barefoot because they have like a wider toe box.
Okay.
You know, our shoes are squash the toes together. Like this. They're called Vivo.
Oh, okay.
And they cost a little bit more, but with that bag, I think you guys can afford it. But they're definitely worth it because your toes, when your baby was born, the toes are splayed like this, and then as we do the shoes, increasingly we squash them together. So Vivo barefoot is worth doing if you're wearing shoes this young.
Yeah.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
What are you doing? Huh? You want me?
Can I give you a flyer to take home? Yeah. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And distilled water, while I've got your attention, look into distilling your own drinking water. I got a baby, he only ever drinks distilled water, and if you realize what's in the bottle, then tap water, you would not want your child to drink that stuff. But you can buy your own countertop home distiller, costs 100, 200 quid, and you can make your own pure water.
That's what Granny's
distilled
got.
water.
To be fair, Ben actually really that.
Okay.
Thank you.
We're mostly water, so...
Yeah, we are.
Yeah.
What do you think time-wise?
Yeah, I'd be ready to go when you guys are, to be honest. Had some good conversations. Earth is flat. La terra piatta. La terra plana. I was just hitting with the only European I know. Yeah. Bonjour, bonjour, mon ami. Earth is flat, not a spinning ball in space. Yeah. I don't see it like, we might have one or two more conversations, but I don't see it getting any busier, right?
No,
This is,
not
we've
really.
hit the, we've gone over the peak.
Yeah.
So, this guy we got a little bit outraged, didn't he? The map man.
Flat
Yeah. He'd have to throw all his maps away, wouldn't he?
Not really though.
No, of course not, no.
Yeah. Playing Eric Michael's Lies last night, actually.
They wouldn't even exist.
It's part of a live stream. Earth is flat, my man. Hey fella, why does it upset you that the Earth might be flat? It really does. Earth is flat, not a spinning ball in space. Space is fake. Astronauts never been to space. Foreign delegation. Guys, I hope you hit the thumbs up. If not, now's a good time. Hope you enjoyed the stream. Francois, Francie, selfish against me, yeah, training over time, making energy much song called Hello by Amber Lasker. Apparently that's worth putting on your playlist. Yeah, well, tomorrow we're going to do Oxford and it's going to be sunny. So come join us for that. Yeah, much love, Jeff.